And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Nuno versus Torres. Step forward, please.
Juanita Nuno is suing her daughter, Carolyn Torres, for a loan to bail her grandson out of jail. Juanita says she may lose her home to foreclosure.
Ms. Nuno, this is your daughter, and according to your complaint, you made your daughter a series of loans. She hasn't paid you back. Your daughter says, yes, it's true that you gave her some money. They were gifts. You do that to all your relatives, and you're singling her out for repayment of these gifts because she had a fight with your other daughter. Is that right, Ms. Torres?
Yeah, that's right.
What did I just say?
I owe her money, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. They were gifts. To me, they were gifts. I heard what you just said.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Did you have anything to drink today?
No, I don't drink.
You use any drugs today?
No, I don't.
Well, then explain to me what your problem is, Ms. Torres.
I don't have a problem.
Who is that?
My kid's father.
Do you live with him?
When I want to, I don't know, when I want him there, I guess.
Step up, sir. What's your name?
Anthony Torres.
How long have you been with Miss Torres?
About 20, 21 years, off and on.
Do you work?
Yeah.
Does your wife suffer from a disability?
No.
Well, is there something wrong with her today? She seems to be out of sorts today.
Well, because I don't think she should be suing me, that's why.
Why did you agree to come here?
I don't know.
Did you discuss coming here with your wife, Mr. Torres?
Yeah.
Why did she come?
Because it's a lawsuit and she needs to come.
Juanita Nuno says her daughter, Carolyn Torres, owes for a loan for bail. Juanita says she posted her grandson's bond after he was arrested for burglary.
Now, if you've been with Mrs. Torres for 20-some-odd years, then you are the father of this young man who got himself into trouble last year?
Yes, I am.
And the first loan, according to you, Ms. Nuno, was for bail for your grandson.
Yes, it was.
What was he arrested for?
The jack broke into a school.
So he was arrested for burglary?
Yeah.
Did you call your mother and ask her for bail?
Yeah.
What did
But
you say to her?
he called her first, though. He called and I called after.
Who called?
I think my son called first, and then my niece called me, and then I called her back.
And when you called your mother, what did you say to her?
Bail him out. I don't have the money.
And what did she say to you?
She said, what happened? I explained to her what happened. The jack broke into a school, so can you bail him out? She does everybody else, so I figured she'd do him.
Why didn't you bail him out?
Like I said, I don't have the money.
Well, how do you support yourself?
By his child support checks.
Well, you live together. Why does he send you child support
Well,
checks?
when I want to get, I'll call him. He doesn't really live with me.
Miss Nuno, you really expect her to pay you back?
Yes.
From what?
She applied for Social Security, and she was supposed
What was
to...
the nature of her disability?
She has arthritis in the spine. That's inherited. It comes down the line. All of us have it. So she applied for Social Security disability.
Yeah.
And they were going to grant it to her. All she needed to do was take a physical exam.
So you expected her to pay you back out of her disability from the government?
Well, not only from that, but from my son-in-law. And I believe him because he never lies.
Well, did he promise to pay you back?
He said he would pay me back. He would pay the bonds people. So that would be good enough.
Is that right, sir?
Yeah, that's right.
So why didn't you pay her?
I intend to, I just haven't had the chance to do it.
It's a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. When are you going to do it?
As soon as I can.
So after they didn't pay you the $1,600, 6 months later you gave her another $2,000. You want to tell me why?
Because I beat her daughter. That's why. That's exactly what happened. She lent me money to move out because I beat her daughter for stealing my child support check.
No, Judge Judy.
Yes, that's what happened.
I billed Anthony out in November.
You got $1,600, Ms. Nuno. What's the $2,000 for?
For getting me out of her house. I was staying with her for 2 months.
Why were you staying there for 2 months?
Because my stupid son, we lost our house in Redlands, so I had to go move in with her because of what he did.
How many other children did you move in with?
5.
How old are your children?
15, 14, 10, and 3. And my son, Anthony, that's 18. He's 18.
You have a 3-year-old child?
Yes, I do.
How did you, with your terrible disability, have a 3-year-old child?
I guess. I don't know how. Well, how else am I going to have a kid?
Judge Judy, you wouldn't believe it. You will not believe this. I had her put in a convent in Mexico. I had tried to educate her day one, and you know...
That's what she went wrong when she sent me to Mexico. She never should have ever sent me to Mexico when I was 10 years old. Never.
Do you have anything you want to say to me, sir?
He didn't say nothing.
No.
I'm not speaking to
Well,
you.
he's not going to say anything.
I'm not speaking to you!
He still won't say nothing, though.
I'm not speaking to you.
Well, I'm speaking to you. I'm telling you, he won't say nothing.
Listen to me very carefully, Miss Torres. You've already shamed yourself in front of a lot of people.
I don't care.
You have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old who can all understand everything that's going around them. I feel very sorry for them, and I guarantee you that if you live alone with your children now, I'm putting in a call to social services to go and monitor your home if these children are in fact living with you. Are they living with her? Are the children living with her?
Yeah.
Well, somebody's going to monitor it. You're not there, is that right?
Most of the time, no.
Listen, Miss Nuno, there is no question in my mind that having spent 10 minutes with your daughter, you had no reasonable expectation that that $2,000 was going to get repaid to you. Maybe the bail money, because you say that you had confidence in your son-in-law, and he says that he agreed to pay you back and he just hasn't gotten around to it yet. Mr. Torres, you have to find something to do with your time other than make children, sir. You have enough children. You have 5 children. And based upon what I've heard, you're not doing too well. And neither are your children. So you have to find some other way of occupying your spare time, like getting a second job, so you can support everybody, so they can all live together and not scam the government anymore. Do you understand me, Mr. Torres? This is all one huge scam you've been living with her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,600. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This one. It's case number 161 on the calendar in the matter of Barrows, Mountjoy versus Mountjoy. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Barrows, this is your fiancé, is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Mountjoy, these are your 2 adult children.
Correct.
You are divorced from their mother, and this would be their mother. All right, we're just getting the players going. Who are you?
Brother.
But not involved in this incident.
Somewhat, I am.
In any event, according to your complaint, these 2 young people were having some problems with you. They believed that you were crank calling their mother, so they decided to come over and discuss it. And it is your claim that they assaulted you. The defendants say that they were the ones who were assaulted, not you, and their mother has a claim against you for damaging her truck, which they used to come over to your house. Is that right?
They used my truck to go there.
So, while the assault case has not been filed against the mother, I would like you to stand up with your children because I have some questions for you. How long have you and your former husband been divorced?
2.5 years.
And how long were you married?
23.
And I assume you don't get along.
I don't talk to him at all.
Did you talk to him while you were married?
I liked being married to him when I was married to him.
Okay. Now, there came a time, sometime, I believe in April of this year, when you started to receive telephone calls.
Yes.
Tell me about the phone calls.
They were just hang-up calls.
When did they start?
Mid-March.
Did anything happen in March between you and your former husband and his fiancée?
No, we've been going through some court hearings for contempt of court.
For?
His non-payment of spousal support.
At some point, I assume that you discussed these hang-ups with your children?
On one particular day, I called actually to my ex-husband and basically asked him if he'd called me. And he said no. And I said, maybe has Tracy called me? And he said, well, why don't you take it up with her? And I said, no, I don't take anything up with her. And by that midday, Miss Barrows called me screaming around, maybe 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the date that I had spoken with my ex-husband.
And what did she say to you?
Well, first thing that came out of her mouth was, who the f do you think you are? And I hung up on her. And she called back again and indicated to me, nobody's prank calling you. Here is my number. You keep my number for the next time I have to call you. You'll know it's my number coming up.
Now, when did you discuss this with your children?
About a week or so later, on the 25th of April, my son and I were having lunch. And in the middle of our lunch, a phone call came in. And I looked at it and I thought, well, gee, this is a 916-825 number. I answered it. I said, hello. And I said, what do you want? And nobody answered, so I basically hung up. So that evening, I was talking to my daughter, She'd come over, and I told her Kevin and I had lunch, and today the phone rang, and she basically pushed the green call number, the call on my cell phone, and it dialed back the number, and I guess Tracy had answered the phone at that point.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. I just kind of recognized her voice right away that it was her.
What did she say?
At first she goes, like, hello, like, you called me, and I'm like, well, I'm just trying to figure out if it, you know, whose number it was, and I said, and apparently it was her. And she goes, oh, just, you people need to get a life, and just kind of went off right after that. And I said, no, I just basically called a phone number trying to figure out who it was, and to my surprise, it was you. And I think it made her upset that I was actually, you know, just saying that.
Then what happened, Amanda?
Oh, she just kept calling. She just kept calling like 3-4 times, yelling at us, hollering about move on, and just calling me names. And
I want you to get to the point when you went over to their house.
The phone calls continued from her. My father had ended up calling one time. He goes, you guys need to stop harassing us. You need to stop bothering us. We're not prank calling anybody. I said, Dad, you're being crazy about this. I said, can you just hear me that all we did was push the number on the phone, and it was her. I said, we're not trying to call anybody. And I think the conversation before was that my mother was going to call their boss just to leave us alone. That's when my father had called. I think maybe he was upset that we were going to call his boss. After she was done with us, she'd called to harass my brother at work.
At what time did she call you?
It was about 8 o'clock in the evening.
And who did you speak to when they called?
The first person that spoke with me actually was my dad. And he says, well, I want to know if your mom and sister are prank calling Tracy. I told him I don't want anything to do with their affairs, flat out.
Perfect. What happened next?
My dad didn't speak long, and he's like, well, I want you to talk to Tracy. And I told him I'm at work. I can't do this stuff. She gets on the phone. She said, you listen here. And I said, well, don't start talking to me like that. And she goes, look, you retard. You need to start listening here. She was telling me that she's going to see that we're emotionally, economically, and socially ruined.
And your father was with her at the time?
I believe so. He stopped talking. She took the phone.
Mr. Mountjoy, did you call your son at work?
Yeah, I called him just to kind of see what was going on with this whole phone call situation.
And where were you and Miss Barrows at the time?
We were in the backyard.
Did you ever hear Miss Barrows say the things that your son ascribes to her?
No, that's not the way she is.
Miss Barrows, you heard what this young man says that you said to him. Any of that true?
No. I've never spoken to these children that way.
How long have you been engaged to their father?
We haven't actually even set an official date, but we've been together 3 years.
Was your relationship with Mr. Mountjoy the reason that his marriage terminated? Were you separated at the time that you met her?
No. We had known each other for years.
Just to say shh. The answer is?
No. Obviously,
no.
She said she put the math together just now.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There's nothing wrong with my hearing. There's nothing wrong with his hearing. That's what you said. You said they were pushing, and your sister, uncross your arms, and your sister punched her in the face.
Yeah.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Calvin Mountjoy and his fiancée Tracy Barrows claim Calvin's children, Amanda and Kevin Mountjoy, assaulted them. The defendant's mother, Kathy Mountjoy, is countersuing for vandalism to her truck.
You came home from work at what time?
I'm not exactly sure. It was about 8:30. I left work early. I was so upset. I was almost in tears. I was out of it. I left. I have problems with emotions and things like that. I just, had a rough time with it. That's why I asked them to leave me out of their affairs completely.
At what point did you and your sister decide to go over to their home?
We went to my mom's. My brother was there. My brother tried to call my dad. She wouldn't let my brother talk to my dad. So we said, forget, let's go see Dad.
Who went over?
Me, my brother, and my sister.
So the three of you went over?
Yeah.
What happened when they got there?
I was in the backyard. He came to the back and said, the kids are here. And they were standing at the end of my driveway, all standing like this, all three of them.
No, we weren't.
And
don't speak.
At this point, they had harassed us all night long. Nicholas called my home phone when he couldn't reach his dad on his cell phone, and my 13-year-old daughter answered it, and he called her a because he thought it was me. So at this point, I walked down to them and I said, you know what, you guys are on my property, you better act right. Well, they all got in my face and started screaming, and that's when Amanda caught me totally off guard and just slugged me right in my face.
Uncross your hands.
And she cold-cocked me. I flew back. Calvin ran to protect me, And before he even got to me, Kevin jumped on him. Amanda ran behind her mother's truck that they had parked over there. I called 911.
Do you have a 911 report?
Yeah.
I see it, please.
It's attached to the restraining order that I got against Amanda. At this point, Kevin dragged his dad out into the street and had him in a chokehold. Nicholas intervened and pulled Kevin off of his dad. Well, then Nicholas turned on his dad, and his dad's trying to fight both of them off. Everyone's running around. It was just pure pandemonium. It was crazy.
Did you have any injuries as a result of this?
My eye was bruised, my lip was fat, my nose was bleeding.
Did you take any photographs?
I have one photo of my face 3 days after.
I'd like to see it.
And we also have phone records proving that we never called them.
I'd like to see your cell phone.
I have mine and Calvin's phone records going all the way back to February.
I'd just like to see April. You have your phone records?
No, we don't have paper phone records.
Okay. Now, what was the number, Miss Mountjoy, that you say came up on the phone?
Or I don't call them. I don't know the numbers by heart. If I had my purse with me, I'd be able to look at my phone and indicate which phone.
On the 25th of April, 209-506. Who is that?
It's me.
You called him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Every time she answered and hung up, and then there's a couple of those where I left messages before he left to let him know that we were coming to his house.
Oh, yeah.
Just a second.
Messages.
You called and said you were coming to the house, but that wasn't until after 8 o'clock, sir.
Yeah. There's...
That wasn't until, I'm talking about 7 o'clock. Whose telephone number is 209-85?
That's mine.
You called your father 1, 2, 3, 4 times that evening. Your mother can sit down now. You can stand up. You were there. Now I'll hear your version of the story.
We wanted to talk to our dad. That's it.
Well, why didn't you wait until things cooled off and speak to your father the next day, perhaps the three of you calling him and saying, listen, Dad, could we meet for lunch? Because we would like to talk to you.
Because we were upset.
Right. Don't speak. Don't speak. That's what your mother should have told you. Because clearly the three of you don't have a judgment among you. There are lots of people that get divorced.
Can we speak?
Yes. But try to listen to what I'm saying to you.
We understand, but this whole time, with her side of the story, we don't get to tell ours. And
listen
all it sounds
to me.
like
It's very easy. They did not come to your house.
That's not her house.
It's not her house.
That is where they live.
I was invited to dinner just that weekend before.
Listen to me.
Like nothing was wrong.
You don't get it. You were invited there for dinner the week before, which is a nice thing. On the night of April 25th, you were all going there because you were upset and angry.
Even if
now,
we waited till
you
the next
go,
day, she
you
still
get
didn't
into
answer
your
the phone.
mother's truck, and you go over to the house so that your father shares with his fiancée. And who's going to tell me what happens?
We go over to this house. We're calm. We want to talk to him.
You're not calm.
Okay. Well,
don't tell me you're calm, because that's a lie.
We're not calm. We're upset.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Okay, fine.
Okay, good. But we go over there. My brother goes up the driveway to see my dad. He has the garage door open. He comes out and puts his arm around my brother, says, what's going on? Then we get out of the truck and we go up there. He's asking what the hell's going on.
Just a second. That's not true. Because according to your mother, and according to the testimony that I've heard, your father said, I haven't been calling you. Your mother said, well, what about Tracy? And he said, I know about Tracy. Speak to her about it. So your father wasn't in a bubble. He knows what's going on. I have the phone records here to prove that.
Tracy comes out of the house and starts pushing my sister and calling her and all these other names. My sister's getting pushed. My sister pushes her back and she punches Tracy in the face.
No, I
Well,
don't speak. I'm not talking to you now.
And
So far what we have is the two girls pushing each other.
they're pushing each other. Yeah.
And your sister punches her in the face.
No, that's not what happened.
Well,
did you hear what I said? I said don't speak. He's telling me, I'll hear you.
Okay.
That's what your brother said.
Okay.
That's what you said.
Okay. So.
There's nothing wrong with my hearing.
No.
There's nothing wrong with his hearing. That's what you said. You said they were pushing, and you said uncross your arms. and your sister punched her in the face.
My dad goes over to my sister and hits her in the face.
He hit me first.
So I grabbed him, and I'm holding him down on the ground. I go to let him up, and he tries to kick me as I'm getting up. Well, my brother gets in between us and tries to break up my dad and I and get everything straightened out. Well, my dad's chasing me back to the truck, so my brother gets in between to break us up. My dad tries to grab my brother and like pick him up, but he can't. So my brother picks him up and throws him to the ground. My dad is screaming and yelling and kicking the truck. He has my brother pinned up against the truck. The cops come. The cops tell us nobody's pressing charges, just don't have anything to do with each other anymore. Everybody agrees. We're not even 5 minutes down the road. Tracy already is calling my brother's cell phone and already called my mom. So
actually, their dad had called them when they left. I called Kathy and left her a message because she never answers her phone, and I told her, you know that you caused all of this.
Just a second. Well, if you left her a message, it would be on the machine. Where's your cell phone? Where's the machine?
My cell phone. I erased all the messages from
Why
her.
did you do that?
I didn't know it was going to come to this.
What do you mean you didn't know it was going to come to this, madam? You alleged harassment on the telephone, and you have something that would clearly support your statement that you've been harassed on the telephone and you erased the messages? You're too smart for that. Now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. How could you have avoided what happened that evening?
I could say
No. How could you have avoided what happened that evening?
what she wants to hear is, we shouldn't have went.
Right.
That's not right.
That's right. That's what could have avoided all this stuff. Because the fact that you live with your mother, and your mother is angry that your father is no longer there, clearly impacts upon the peace in your home. But that's an old story. That's a story that, put your hand down, that I've heard for 30 years. The question is, if you wanted to avoid trouble, you shouldn't have gone over there that night. So it was your fault. It was, no, Miss Stupid over here doesn't think it was her fault, but I'm telling you it was your fault.
We can't even call him. Even if we
Listen
did call
to me.
to have dinner with him the
He
next
works,
day, she would answer it.
No. Your father is not retired and he's not in a convalescent home. He has a job.
No, she works there. She answers the phone.
She answers the phone?
Yeah,
Yes.
she's the secretary.
She's the secretary.
Just a second. So you, just a second.
And I'm not a secretary.
What are you?
Do you have, let me tell you something. He doesn't love your mother anymore. Get over it. That doesn't mean he doesn't love you.
He doesn't.
That doesn't mean he doesn't love you.
That he doesn't want to see us anymore. That's basically what I want to hear.
You are so fixed and so limited that it's going to be impossible for anybody, including me, to get through to you. The only thing I can say to you, the three of you together, is if you had not gone over there, stop playing with yourself. If you had not gone over there riled up on April 25th, this whole thing would not have happened. If you had taken a deep breath, counted to 10 and said, tomorrow, if I want to talk to my father, who looks like a very nice man. You look like a nice man. If you don't think he's a nice man, that's up to you. Don't have anything to do with him anymore. But don't go over to his house at 9 o'clock at night where he lives, belligerent, upset, and the first blow that was thrown came from her.
No,
that's what your brother said. No. That's what your brother said. That's not what she said.
He hit me first.
No, listen to me. That's not what your brother said.
The only reason he restrained my father is because my father hit me first.
I don't care if your father hit you.
Well,
I want to tell you something. If my 20-year-old daughter came over there in a belligerent way, I would have given her a good crack in the face, too. And I don't believe it because that's not what your brother said. So, I don't know, quite frankly, Mr. Mountjoy, what value it is, other than the fact that you've gotten it out of your system, it is to sue them. Can I give you monetary damages? Sure. Can I say to you, you've been vindicated that they were stupid to come over there that evening? Absolutely. On your lawsuit, each one of them is going to give you $10. And they've gotten my response to what they did. Now I'm going to deal with their mother's car. Their mother's car should never have been there. And if it was dented that night as a result of this altercation, then their mother's going to fix it. You're not going to fix it. So your counterclaim is dismissed. Go home.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 41 on the calendar in the matter of Pinchek versus Azure. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Ms. Pinchek, you and the defendant don't know each other, but were involved in an incident that can be described as a road rage incident. It is your claim that Mr. Azure caused this accident, which damaged your car. He says it was you who caused the accident. He said that you hit him in the rear. He is counterclaiming because he alleges that because of your conduct, he was forced to drop out of school, to have his education delayed, and he has a counterclaim. When did this incident happen, Ms. Pinchek?
February 3rd, 2005.
What time of the day or evening?
Approximately 10:30 in the morning.
And where were you going?
I was on my way to work.
Where do you work?
Sacred Heart Medical Building.
What kind of a car were you driving?
Honda Civic, 97.
What kind of car were you driving?
I was driving a 87 Toyota Corolla.
Where were you going?
I was going home. I was leaving school.
You had been in school that morning?
Yeah, I just got out at 10:20, and I was on my way home.
Okay, so Ms. Pinchek, you tell me your version of what happened, please.
I was driving westbound on Mission.
Show me on your diagram, please.
This is
Which
me
color
here.
are you?
I'm B.
You're blue.
Yes. As I'm driving here, there's a bus that's moving. He pulls out from behind the bus and cuts me off right here. So I went into this turn lane to avoid the accident. I'm attempting to get back over, but he's not letting me. So at this point, after I honked my horn, he then let me in, which as I came here, and he was a bit further down here, this is where we hit because he was driving erratically and he slammed on his brakes. And to avoid hitting him again, I turned this way. And that's how the damage occurred on that side of the car.
Okay, so what you're saying is he cut you off.
Yes.
You had to get back into a driving lane.
Yes.
Ultimately, he let you back in the driving lane, but then slammed on his brakes, causing you to swerve.
Yes.
And that's how the back of his car and the front of your car were damaged.
Correct.
Okay, fine. I will hear you.
Okay, it started with the bus stop. There was actually another car in front of me. The first car proceeded to go around the bus, made it around. I looked, there was nobody behind me. I proceeded into this lane. I was all the way up here, and all of a sudden I heard a series of honking. She was in a hurry to get somewhere, and I just wasn't going fast enough for her. I looked into my rearview mirror. She's on the cell phone, driving, honking her horn, and then she proceeds to go on my driver's side to pass me. She must have thought that was another lane, because it widens out there for about 50 feet, and then it closes out real quick, and it goes right back into the two lanes. And she proceeded to pass me, Your Honor. She was all the way up as far as my back door on my driver's side. And as soon as I seen that, I started to slow down to let her proceed so she could proceed to pass, but she couldn't do it because there's oncoming traffic coming. So then she stopped to try to swing back around to get back behind me. And I feel that it was all her fault. She was on the cell phone. If she wasn't talking on that cell phone, maybe she could have used that other hand to flip the blinker and switch into the lane that was completely open.
Okay. Now, you had some damage to your car?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of damage did you have to your car?
Do you want to see pictures? Mm-hmm. I have two different estimates. The pictures are in the back of each page of the estimate.
What happened when the police arrived?
One officer talked to me, and I told him the story, and basically he wrote out the report, and that was it. He said that he attempted to contact my witness.
Do you have a police report?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please? You were cited for an improper lane usage.
I didn't commit it. It was found non-committed.
Did you have a hearing with regard to that?
Yes, with extenuating circumstances. My witness was there to attend as well.
What is your name, sir?
Sonny Shaver.
Stand up, please. Do you know the plaintiff?
I never met her till that day.
You were driving on the 3rd of February?
I was the oncoming traffic, Your Honor.
Show me where your car was.
I was here. This island stops and, like he said, becomes two double yellow lines that narrowed down back to a 4-lane street. When I saw him, she was behind him. He went about halfway into this lane with half his car. Then all of a sudden he came back and she dived to the left to avoid him, and I thought, oh, going to get hit head on here. She slammed on the brakes then and cut it to the left. He cut it to the left across the double yellow line and stopped, and she hit him. So I drove around the block and said, I'll be a witness for you.
And you gave her your name?
Gave her my business card.
And you did come down with her to testify on her behalf?
Yes, ma'am.
It was very nice of you.
Well, I saw she rear-ended him, and that's almost always automatically her fault, and I felt it wasn't, so.
And you and Miss Pinchuk didn't know each other?
No, ma'am.
That's totally false. I had no reason to turn. I was a mile down my road. She was reckless driving. I was trying to avoid her.
Well, I'm looking at you, Mr. Azure, because Mr. Shaver doesn't know the plaintiff, right?
I can't tell you.
And when you stopped, did you see Mr. Shaver there that day?
No, he was not there.
Did you see him?
He was yelling at me, some foul things.
No.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Nope. He told me, you can't frickin' stop in the middle of the road. And
So,
like,
just a second, Mr. Azure. Mr. Azure. Shh. Mr. Azure, you just said you didn't see him there that day.
Well,
how could you tell me that you didn't see him there that day, and then 2 seconds later tell me what he was yelling at you?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I do not believe that it was him. There was a guy there.
Listen to me. That was him. He
Was
didn't
it?
say, yeah, it was him.
No, there was a guy that didn't want to wait
Listen
for
to
the
me.
police officers.
Listen to me. It was him.
And later today,
He didn't steal the car keys. He didn't grab them out of her pocket. She was drunk. He was drunk. They're just lucky they're not dead.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bobby Pinchuk says fellow motorist Charles Azure owes for an accident caused by his reckless driving. Charles claims the accident was Bobby's fault.
All right. Now let's get to your counterclaim, Mr. Azure. I'll hear you.
There was a blonde-haired gentleman. I do not believe that it was him. There was a guy there.
Listen to me. That was him. He
Was
didn't
it?
say, yeah, it was him.
No, there was a guy that didn't want to wait
Listen
for
to
the
me.
police officers.
Listen to me.
And he took off.
Listen to me. It was him. Let's just get to
I
your
never talked to
counterclaim,
him.
sir.
Okay. After this accident, I just had surgery on my knee, and I'm in criminal justice at the Spokane Community College. I have no reason to jeopardize my career. My knee went into the dashboard, and it swelled up my knee. I got the doctor report, and I took it to my instructors at school, and they put me on hold. They ended up giving me a Z grade.
What does that have to do with this accident?
Because my knee swollen, because I got injured in there, and I couldn't pursue my criminal justice. They put me on hold. They said I had to get doctors. I can't get released from the doctors. I've had 4 surgeries on my knee, Your Honor, and...
Do you have any surgeries on your knee after this incident, sir?
No, I had it August 29th, 04.
The last one was
The last
in
one was
August. The last one was in
10/29/04.
August. Okay. Well,
Just
maybe
like
you're
4 months prior to this
Maybe you're in
accident.
you're pursuing the wrong career, sir.
I'm not going as a police officer. We're opening a bail bonds company, and we're going to pursue that.
You're going to be a bail bondsman?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. All right, Mr. Azure. Are you going back to school for criminal
They let me
justice?
back in. I just had my appointment with the dean on May 5th, and they said I can go back in
I'm very
in September.
glad. Okay. Who is this person?
This is my wife, Joni.
What does she have to do with this case?
She's the one that took me to the hospital, saw my knee, how it swelled. I had to be in a neck brace. I had to wear my splint again. I had to use crutches.
Just for my own information, sir, did you speak to an attorney about these injuries?
Yes, I did.
And did the attorney take your case against
No,
Ms.
he
Pinchuk?
didn't. Because he said I had a pre-existing knee injury.
That plus a couple of other things, Mr. Azure. One of the things that would be death to your case is this gentleman right over here. Because he's known as an independent witness. He is absolutely correct when he says that when someone rear-ends someone else in their car, unless there are really extenuating circumstances, it's always your fault. Those are the facts. You understand that, Mr. Azure?
Yes, her insurance...
Unless, Mr. Azure, you have an independent witness who says that you were driving recklessly. That's what he says. And he's got no axe to grind. He took a couple of days off from work. He actually came back to a scene of an accident where most people would just keep going.
I never seen him, Your Honor.
Well, maybe you just heard him. And there is no question in my... Listen to me, I'm speaking.
Okay.
There's no question in my mind that he was there. There's no question in my mind that he chose to come back to the scene of the accident because he was concerned that Miss Pinchuk would be blamed for the accident because it was a rear-end hit. He took the time after she contacted him to go down and testify before the administrative law judge at the hearing regarding the ticket. The ticket was dismissed, as is your counterclaim, sir. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of damage to the car, $1,400. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She found that I was at fault, but I just don't feel that I was.
It was his fault. He knows it was his fault, and that's what he gets for trying to lie.
She was totally out of control, calling me every name in the book.
At the point where he realized that I was cussing him out and I was honking my horn and I need to get back over, that's when he got mad.
On her cell phone, driving right behind me, she was so close to my bumper, I could see the whites of her eyes.
Cell phone doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm a multitasker. I'm excellent.
Whatever.
Don't be mad because you lost.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Aziz versus Robertson, step forward.
Basil Aziz is suing comedy club owner Jay Robertson for the cash prize from a Player of the Year contest. Jay says Basil was the only contestant to show up.
Mr. Aziz, according to your complaint, Mr. Robertson is the owner of a club that you have been to in the past, and you saw some sort of an advertisement that indicated that on a particular day he was going to have a contest. You claimed that you went to the contest, that you won the contest, and that Mr. Robertson didn't pay I think it was $1,000. Is that right? That he indicated in the flyer was going to be the prize. Mr. Robertson's defense is that not enough people showed up, so that the contest never took place.
Correct.
Okay. Can I see the flyer that notified the public about this contest? Your club is in Virginia, sir?
Yes.
What kind of club is it?
It's a comedy club.
And you had these prepared?
Yes, I did.
Where did you send them?
They was on all sides of town, all over.
Okay. It says $1,000 to be awarded to the Player of the Year. Now, according to your complaint, Mr. Aziz, there was an entrance fee.
I paid that.
I don't see it where it said there was an entrance fee here. What was the entrance fee?
$50 or $100.
Well, who made the decision whether it was 50 or 100?
I did. Originally, how it was all going to be set up, it's going to be $150.
How come you didn't put that down here, sir?
Because I put on, the reason why I put it on there so more people can call. That's why I put on there for more info call.
Okay. And when people called, what did you tell them?
That's when I was telling them that it was $150. With the $150, that would take care of you, you know, far as for your meals, beverage, drinks, everything, plus entering into the contest.
Okay. All right, Mr. Aziz. You got to the club on June 4th?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much did you pay when you got there?
$50.
Who did you give the money to?
The lady at the door.
What was the name of that lady?
That was the ticket lady. Her name was Lisa. And how it was set up, Lisa was to inform anyone who wanted to do the contest. That particular time, we has changed everything from the $150 to where that if you want to do the whole contest, it would be $100.
You can't do, Mr. Robertson.
He changed it too much.
Let me explain something to you. You can't do that, sir. What you're telling me is depending upon your mood, how you felt, or whatever. Sometimes you told people that it was $150. Then it was something else because you changed all the rules.
Well, all the rules...
Mr. Robertson, you can't do that, sir.
All the rules stayed the same. And how the whole contest was supposed to be set up was, I had 5 women. That was going to be a panel. You had to go up on the stage. You had to explain to them why you should be the Player of the Year. They was going to tally up their votes. That never happened.
Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Robertson. How come it never happened?
Because the only person that really came, because after, when I got back to the club...
The only person that came was?
Right here.
Do you know what that makes him? You know what that makes him? Player of the Year.
Thank you. Go ahead, tell me. You want to tell me? He never told me.
Mr. Robertson, when you run a contest and you have somebody that enters, like he did, and paid his money, and you didn't get enough people so that it could be the kind of event you wanted, but there were a lot of people in your club that night, right? How many people were in the club?
I had...
How many people were in the club?
I had a lot of ladies at that particular time.
Right.
And then later on, that's when...
You had a lot of ladies. Would you say you had 200 people?
Something like that.
Line was around the corner.
Hey, You had 200 people, and was that a usual Saturday night, sir?
Something like that.
Did you have more ladies that Saturday night than you usually have?
Yeah, at that particular time.
You think that's because you advertised the Players Ball?
Well, that was the catch, to get the ladies to
Right. So you got what your advertising paid for, Mr. Robertson. Now you have to pay up. The winner. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all. Thank
Parties
you.
are excused. You may step out. Now, this is case number 173 on the calendar in the matter of Banks Jr. versus Helzer. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
You are suing Mrs. Hessler because her 16-year-old daughter, according to you, stood you up for the prom.
Yes.
For your senior prom. And you had a lot of expenses, and you believe that her mother is responsible for her standing you up.
No, not necessarily, Your Honor. I don't
Well,
feel
she's
that...
responsible because you can't sue her daughter, so you have to sue her mother. Ms. Helser says that her daughter did not stand you up, that you didn't contact her as you should, but she has a substantial counterclaim, and her counterclaim is that since you believed you were stood up for the prom, you have embarked upon a course of conduct that amounts to harassment and defamation of her daughter's character, which forced her to leave school because she flunked all of her finals, and it became a catastrophe, and she has a counterclaim. When did you invite Dana to the prom?
About May 20th.
Did you do it in person?
No, ma'am. I was introduced to her through a friend of mine. It was her best friend, and I was on the internet, and she instant messaged me. She sent me a message, and...
Who did?
Diana.
Diana sent you a message?
Right.
Saying what?
Just starting a conversation, just, hi, my name is Diana, something to that effect.
So you didn't ask her to the prom?
I did. Eventually I did.
In person or over the internet?
Over the internet and in person.
Is that right?
I don't remember him asking me in person to prom, no.
How do you believe he asked you to the prom?
Over the internet, we were discussing the fact that he needed to date, and he said, you know, do you want to go with me, basically? And,
and what did you say?
I said, okay.
You said, okay,
I
so
said,
now you had a date. And you knew when you go to the same school?
Yes.
So you knew when the prom was?
Yes.
Okay. So you had to buy, you rented a tux?
No, I bought a tux.
Bought a tux. Figure stopped growing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Buy tickets?
Yes, Your Honor.
Rented a car?
No. I was gonna drive.
Okay. Tux, tickets. What else?
I also had dinner reservations. There was no fee for making the reservations, but there was for canceling reservations.
And what were all your expenses?
My expenses totaled to be, I believe, about $500 and some odd dollars.
Now, did you end up going to the prom, Mr. Banks?
No, ma'am.
Did not?
No.
Tell me what happened. What was the date of the prom?
Saturday, June 4th.
And just prior to June 4th, when had you last spoken with Diana?
June 3rd.
Where did you speak to her?
I spoke with her at school.
What did you say to her, and what did she say to you?
I informed her that I'd be getting everything ready. And
did she tell you what color her dress was?
Yes, it was pink.
Did she tell you what kind of flowers she liked?
No, ma'am.
Did you get the flowers?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of flowers did you get?
I got a bouquet of roses, and I got a corsage and a hand thing. I don't know.
The whole 9 yards?
The whole 9.
Did you tell her what time you'd pick her up?
Yes, Your Honor. I told her I'd be there to pick her up at 4.
So what happened, Mr. Banks?
Saturday, I had been running around picking things up, doing everything, getting everything ready. I hadn't spoken with her, but I had been speaking with her best friend, the one that set us up, and my best friend, because we were going to double date to prom. I had been with her friend's date all day, and I was on my way to pick her up, and I got a phone call from her friend saying that she had an allergy attack and she couldn't go to prom.
What time was that?
I'd have to say about 3:50.
Go ahead.
I was getting ready for prom at about 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Got dressed, went and got my nails done. I made my hair appointment and went and picked up my dress. When I was getting my nails done, I did have an allergy attack, and I went home and I tried to call John after talking to my mom. I called him, and his sister answered, saying that he would be out with friends all night. So I decided, okay, I'm going to stay home for a while. A friend of mine called and said, Diana, or aren't you going to go to prom? And I said, no, I don't feel good. She says, would you like to come over, hang out, and we're not going to go do anything? And I said, okay. We ended up going over to another friend's house, just relaxing and watching movies the rest of the night, and we fell asleep.
Well, that's pretty outrageous, my dear Diana. That's pretty outrageous of you. You agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
You agree with I disagree.
Excuse me, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to your daughter, whose conduct was outrageous. Now, if you have an allergy attack and you are bedridden and staying home, that's one thing. But to go over to a friend's house, hang out and watch a movie is something entirely different. And I would be angry too if I got stood up at the last minute.
I had not yet given my permission for them to go.
I don't care.
Okay.
Whether you gave your permission or not. Did she use her own money to buy the dress?
Yes, she did.
And you didn't know about it?
I did know about it.
All right. And when you found out about it, did you say to her, I haven't given you permission?
Yes, ma'am.
When she went to get her hair and nails done, did you say to her, don't bother to have your hair and nails done because I haven't given you permission?
What I said was I haven't yet met Mr. Banks and I haven't given my permission. I need to meet him.
Miss Helsa, it's not an excuse. I'm saying that your daughter's conduct was reprehensible for a 16-year-old. She stood him up for his prom.
Okay.
And she stood him up not because she was sick, because she decided she didn't want to go. And she went to a friend's house and hung out with friends. And that is reprehensible.
Is that what you did?
No.
Is that what you did?
That is what I did.
You didn't know that?
Did you stand him up because you didn't want to go, or did you stand him up because you went and had an allergy attack and then went over to Julie's house?
It was because I had an allergy attack and my friend had wanted me to come over because she knew I wasn't feeling well and wanted to hang out.
Listen to me. If you have a debilitating allergy attack, you stay home. Go ahead.
That Saturday was prom, June 4th. June 5th, I broke my rib. June 5th, playing basketball. And so June 6th, I stayed home, which was on Monday. I called her best friend on the phone. We talked about it because she felt bad as well because she set us up together. And I decided to call Mrs. Helser. And we spoke on the phone for a while. She was a really nice lady. And she also felt that what she did was inappropriate. And I know that she's not legally obligated to pay me back because, you know, it's an agreement to go to a social event and that's not a contract. However, her mother being of age and me being of age, she did make a verbal contract over the phone. And I have a witness here, her best friend is here to testify because she was on the phone when I called her.
What did her mother say?
We spoke about what Diana really did on prom night.
Well, what did you say to her mother? Her mother's here. She's a party. You can tell me what you said to her mother.
I told her that I had an agreement to go to prom with her, and she informed me that she was aware of that Diana actually had an allergy attack. And I told her no, that Diana actually decided to spend the day with her boyfriend because I guess apparently she got a boyfriend that morning and he asked her not to go.
She got a boyfriend that morning?
Yeah, Saturday morning she got a boyfriend and she decided, and he asked her not to go. So, you know, and that's perfectly fine. But
are you saying that somebody knows that? That you have a witness here?
That I was on the phone and that she told her that? Yes, I have a witness here.
I'd like to see the witness.
Kayla.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She told me she had spent the night at her boyfriend's house.
What boyfriend?
His name is Jason.
Did you tell your mother that? Look at me. Did you tell your mother you were going to spend the night with Jason?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 18-year-old John Banks Jr. says 16-year-old Diana Helser stood him up for his prom. Diana and her mother Lori are countersuing for the cost of summer school classes and defamation of character.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in these matters?
Yes.
State your name for the record.
Kayla Brett.
Kayla, are you a friend of hers?
Not anymore, but I was.
Were you the girl who was supposed to double date with them?
Yes.
You had originally set them up? Did you have a conversation with Diana with regard to why she didn't go to the prom with him?
Yes, I did. I called her to make sure that she was ready to go because John was on his way, and she had informed me that she did not want to go.
Did she say why she didn't want to go?
She said she had an allergy attack, but as I continued to talk to her later on that day before my date came to pick me up, she told me that, or I think it was June 5th, that she told me she had spent the night at her boyfriend's house.
What boyfriend?
His name is Jason.
So she said she spent the evening with Jason?
Yes.
Prom evening with Jason?
Yes. She also had, there's a website called MySpace. I don't know if you're familiar. It's
I don't do that machine.
It's a website where you go and you can write journal entries on there, leave comments for friends, and post pictures up there. She had left a blog explaining what she had done that day, and she said that she was at a friend's house roasting marshmallows and she had spent the night there. That's basically confirmed that what she was doing, and I did have a conversation with her, and I was quite upset, and I told her everything, how messed up it was that she had done that.
That's pretty messed up. Did you tell your mother that? Look at me. Did you tell your mother you were going to spend the night with Jason?
I told my mom I was going to spend the night over at Julie's, and I told my mom that we were going over to Jason's to watch a movie. And
your mother just said the word Julie. I never heard your mother say Jason. Your mother was whispered to you, you went to Julie's.
I did go to Julie's, ma'am. We went over to Jason's, who was not my boyfriend.
Just a second. So from Julie's house, you went to Jason's house.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have an attack in between getting from Julie's house to Jason's house, did you?
They're neighbors, no.
Didn't have an attack between Julie's house and Jason's house, did you?
No, ma'am.
And she did call me and checked in, and she called at midnight and let me know that they were just about to finish up a movie and that she would be back at Julie's by 1.
When you spoke to Mr. Banks on the phone 2 days later, did you tell him that you would compensate him for his expenses?
No, ma'am, I did not.
What did you say to him?
I said I needed to see receipts.
So you did discuss expenses?
We discussed expenses.
Fine, and you said I needed to see receipts.
Before I would even consider a discussion.
I don't believe you.
Seriously.
I don't believe you. Yeah, I believe that you said to him, I will pay those expenses, but I have to see receipts.
I have emails here where he's saying that I agreed to pay $270 for prom tight. Diana said, quote, Diana said she's going to pay me $270 for prom. Hit me up. And then to Kayla, who responded, I say $300 even. What's an extra $30?
Listen to me. All I said to you was you had a discussion with Mr. Banks, and you are under no legal obligation. I don't believe you are under a legal obligation, but for the fact that you agreed to pay him.
I didn't agree to pay him.
Your Honor.
Just a second. In order to have a contract, Mr. Banks, let me explain something. It gets to be a little bit tricky. There has to be, in order to have a valid contract, there has to be some consideration. That means that each person is giving something. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
What would be the consideration in your judgment for Ms. Helser to make an agreement to pay you any part of your prom expenses?
I think she felt morally obligated. She still stated to me that Diana had just gotten a job. I didn't know Diana had a job. She said Diana had just gotten a job and that she'd make Diana pay me back my money as long as I had receipts. And I have receipts here right now.
Just a second. So she said she would make Diana pay you back?
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe you.
18-year-old John Banks Jr. says 16-year-old Diana Helser stood him up for his prom. Diana and her mother Lori are countersuing for the cost of summer school classes and defamation of character.
Go ahead.
I was on the other line. He had three-wayed Miss Helser. While I was on the phone, she did say that Diana would pay for the expenses out of her own paychecks because she had just gotten a job.
That's not true. What I said was I would consider based on seeing the receipts. And whether or not you were on the line.
Miss Helser?
Yes.
I'm going to flip over for a moment to your counterclaim, which I'm prepared to hear in 30 seconds or less. He's got a claim for maybe $500. He's got receipts that totally says maybe $500. You have a $4,000 counterclaim because,
yes,
according to you, your daughter was harassed, defamed, etc. She flunked all of her finals, because of what he did. So you want to get there, please? Diana?
Yes, ma'am.
Start with the ad.
I had been on MySpace and I saw an ad that Kayla had posted about paying people to kick my...
Read it directly.
Just as you don't have to read it to me.
Okay.
What does that have to do with him if Kayla wrote something?
John had confronted some girls at school about...
Don't tell me any hearsay. I don't want to hear any hearsay.
See it.
He had been talking to Kayla on the conversation that I have in front of me about 2 girls that are going to beat my... and that basically I would look better if my was kicked.
What else?
Okay. In this email, he's saying that she'll look even worse after getting her beat. The girl that's going to beat her This is Jason's ex-girlfriend, who's, because her and Diana used to be friends, and she thinks that's f***ed up, that she's with her ex. Oh, well, whatever the reason is, she wants to be there. It'll work. Hit me back.
What does that have to do with him?
This is his word saying that
I don't care.
he's
What does
got
that have
two
to do with him? According to that email, Jason, the new boyfriend, had an ex-girlfriend, and the ex-girlfriend of Jason is going to beat her up.
He's got 2 girls at school ready to beat my daughters.
No, no, no. Listen to me. What you just read to me was that the girl is Jason's ex-girlfriend who is angry with her. He may not discourage it. He may even like it. But that's what you just read to me.
I disagree.
Well, I don't care what you agree with, Miss Helsa. I would listen to you if you took responsibility for your daughter's bad behavior and said to me, listen, this was a teenage thing. I feel responsible for my daughter's bad behavior. My daughter blew him off, and he was a very nice young man. And
I didn't know
I'm
that.
speaking. I'm speaking. Well, he was a very nice young man. He called you 2 days later. He called you most respectfully. Otherwise, you would have hung up on him. He called you most respectfully and said to you, this is what your daughter did, and it was not the right thing to do. So he was most respectful. And if you came into court, or didn't even have to come to court, if you said to him, look, I think what my daughter did was reprehensible, and I'm going to do the best I can to cover your expenses, and I'll make my daughter pay me back for whatever your costs were, because what she did was immature. She's only 16. But also unkind. And I don't raise my child to be unkind, an unkind human being, then I would have respect for you instead of making excuses.
I'm not making excuses.
You did make excuses, because I didn't hear you say to me at any time, he's a nice young man, he tried to do the right thing. My daughter did the wrong thing. My daughter was not hospitalized. She did not seek doctor's counsel that day or the next day. She went out with her girlfriend Julie and her new boyfriend Jason, and they hung out together until after midnight, and it was not the right thing to do when he was supposed to pick her up at 4 o'clock, and between 4 o'clock and midnight, she was not, I'm speaking, and between 4 o'clock and midnight, she was not in an emergency room.
We did not have any idea when he would arrive to pick her up.
Madam, you are operating somewhere in La La Land. Your daughter knew he was going to pick her up at 4 o'clock.
Did you know that?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, you did. Because you spoke to her and you were supposed to double date. So don't give me baloney. Let me see the receipts, please. Did you flunk your classes?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you leave school?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what happens when you do the wrong thing. You didn't give the flowers to anybody else, did you?
No, Your Honor.
You're even, my dear, going to pay for your own flowers, because I think that your mother made an agreement with him to do that. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $415. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are
Counterclaim is
excused.
dismissed.
You may step out. Your Honor, this is case number 167 on calendar in the matter of Mahaffey versus Strawn. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Mr. Mahaffey, the defendant is your mother-in-law. You are currently separated from your wife. I assume this is your wife.
Yes.
And you have one child together.
Yes, ma'am.
I gather from your complaint that you, your wife, and your baby were living with Miss Strawn in her home.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there was some altercation involving you and your wife and your baby. You claimed that you left, and after you left, Miss Strawn burned your clothes.
Yes.
Miss Strawn says she did not burn your clothes, she put them out on the curb. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did your daughter and her husband live with you? From when to when?
They're going to be married 2 years in September. Pretty much the whole time they've been with us.
And when did you leave?
May 23rd on a Monday.
Tell me what happened.
I had my mother pick me up from work.
Did she always pick you up from work?
No, ma'am.
Why did she pick you up on the 23rd of May?
I had no ride at the time.
Okay, she picked you up from work and dropped you off at your house?
My house was at her house at the time. I got there, and I asked my mother if she wanted to see our son, Ethan, and I told her to wait 1 minute. I went up to the front porch after arriving at the house.
Why did you tell her to wait? Don't they get along?
To some extent. There's been some problems, arguments.
There'd be no reason why she couldn't have came in.
Okay. Go ahead.
I went up to the front porch, and what I saw was Ashley and a couple of her friends smoking marijuana on the front porch, and my son was running around in the middle of them.
Where was your mother-in-law?
She was at work at the time.
Is this the first time that you saw your wife smoking marijuana in front of your son?
No, ma'am.
Was this a frequent occurrence?
Yes.
My daughter did. That's my pride.
Don't shout out again. I let you do it once.
Okay.
But don't do it again.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Chin down.
After seeing what I saw, I had asked for Ashley to ask all her friends to leave at the time.
Well, you probably got angry. If what you say is true, you probably didn't just ask. You probably got angry and you were shouting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you were shouting, and what did you do?
I told her I was going to my mother's house to stay for a little while, so I had picked my son up, and I did not want him to be around.
You picked him up and you walked outside with him?
Yes.
And you went to the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What happened next?
I asked my mother if we could come over there and stay for a day or two. She said that's fine. We had left and went to the house, and when we arrived at my mother's house, Ashley had called me and told me to give her back her son. And I said, not with you smoking marijuana around him. Until you can stop, then you can call me.
All right. Miss McCafferty, I'd like you to stand up, please. You remember going over to the Strawn house on the 23rd of May?
Yes, ma'am.
When you went over there, when your son came back, he came back with your grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what he said to you when he came back?
He simply stated that they were up there smoking marijuana and he didn't want his son around it. And
did he use the word marijuana?
No, ma'am. He pot.
Okay.
And asked me if he could come over to the house and stay and bring the baby, which at that point I told him yes.
Okay. Keep going, Mr. McCaffrey.
After we arrived at the house, Ashley had called me, and she told me to bring back the baby. And I said, no, not with you smoking. And after that, she had hung up on me. And I had called Patty at work, and I had told her what she was doing, because before I had called her, Ashley had already called her at work and said that I had kidnapped our son.
Well, that's not possible.
And after that, I talked to her for about 20 minutes or so, and she said, why are you doing this? Ashley does not smoke. She hung up.
Ms. Strawn, are you thoroughly convinced that your daughter doesn't smoke marijuana?
Well, actually...
Just answer my question. Thoroughly convinced?
Yes.
All right. There's a very simple way to find that out, Ms. Strawn.
She's been tested. They turned her into defects.
Has she done a hair follicle test or just a urine test?
The urine test. She passed 5.
Just a second. Has she done a hair follicle test?
Nobody suggested it.
Very easy. We can take care of that.
Well, you'll have to do it to him, too, because he's bad as she is.
No, just a second. I'm not interested in him right now. I'm interested in your daughter. Urine test is nothing. But a hair follicle test will demonstrate when you smoked, how much you smoked, and it stays in the hair follicle for up to a year. So you understand that if I order a hair follicle test, if your daughter consents, the results of that test can be sent to any domestic relations court when there is an issue of custody and or visitation. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Now go and discuss with your daughter whether she's prepared for us to take a sample of her hair and send it to our laboratory. Go ahead.
Like
go
I
ask
said,
her.
ma'am, if you
go,
do it to him,
no,
too.
just, he's not an issue.
Good.
Yeah. Fine, we'll do that. At the conclusion of the hearing, we'll do that.
Well, what does that have to do with what the case is about, ma'am?
Well, it has a great deal to do with the case, madam, because what you're saying is that your daughter doesn't smoke marijuana, therefore the story that he just told me about going up to the porch and seeing her is a lie. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm saying, well, there's a very easy way to figure that out. It has nothing to do with whether he smokes marijuana or not. It's whether your daughter did, and you are committed to the fact that she does not.
Right.
You want to smoke dope, that's your business, but don't smoke dope in front of your child.
I don't, ma'am.
Or be around friends who do.
We weren't smoking pot, ma'am.
What were you doing?
Sitting there talking, and he took the baby without a car seat and left. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, told me to come and get him.
Does he smoke marijuana?
Yeah, he smokes crack, too.
Just a second. Smokes marijuana? And you never... Stand up. Stand up. And what you're telling me is you never did it with him?
Yes, ma'am, I will admit to that.
All right. That's all I'm asking you, my dear. So your mother is mistaken. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
She's bad. That's all I wanted to know. That's it. That's the issue. Now you can sit down. You got it. Your daughter does smoke marijuana. She didn't tell you, but she smoked it with her husband. She says he smokes other things too. I didn't ask her about the other things, but she clearly smokes marijuana. Now we understand each other, Miss Strawn?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're supposed to stay out of it. This genius picked this genius. The only problem, well, this is your genius, Miss Strawn.
And later today,
Do you have anything you want to say to me, sir?
He didn't say nothing.
I'm not speaking to
Well,
you.
he's not going to say anything.
I'm not speaking to you.
Well, I'm speaking to you. I'm telling you.
for burning his work uniforms, Patricia claims Marcus is making up a story.
Now, let's get back to your burned clothing. Go, and get there fast, because I have other things to do today.
We arrived at the house after her calling me, and I talked to
So
Patty.
you brought the baby back. Keep
Yes,
going.
ma'am. And that night, when I was talking to Ashley, I heard Patty in the background asking for marshmallows. I asked why they want marshmallows. Did they have a fire going? Ashley said, yes, they're burning your clothes. They want to roast marshmallows over your clothes. And I did not believe her. So the next day, on the 24th, I went over there to see for myself. Patty was not there. Ashley refused to show me any clothes. I just happened to walk down the driveway, and I smelled something burnt, a distinctive
Is that
smell.
burnt clothes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You want to show me one piece of the burnt clothing? I don't have to see the whole thing.
Your Honor, who's to say that he didn't burn his own clothes?
Me.
After everything he's done to me.
Me, I'm to say.
Okay.
I'm to say. Because I read your answer. Shh. Got it. Okay, you can put it away. Okay. Miss Strawn says that she took your clothes and she put them out by the curb.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I did.
You can't do that.
Why?
Because he's a resident of your home, and you have an obligation to hold on to his property until he comes to get it, unless he... Put your hand down. Unless he abandons it. You have no right to take his clothes and put them on the curb, because if you took them and put them on the curb and somebody else came by and burned them, you would be responsible. You have no right to do that.
But he has never as much as paid a cent living
I
in
don't
my house.
care. You allowed him to live in your
put it
home
there.
for
I
2
didn't
years.
want him
I'm
near me.
speaking to you. He lived in your home for 2 years. Don't get in the middle. You're really dumb if you get in the middle, especially if you have 2 children who are babies themselves, and I probably believe you that both of them smoke pot and whatever else. So it's very possible that you 2 mothers-in-law and grandmothers are going to have to be responsible for this baby at some point, because certainly they're not responsible. And I would suggest that you try to maintain reasonable relations. He's allowed to take his child.
No, he's not. There's a TPO
No,
against him.
listen to me. At the time he took his child, there was no custody order. And in this country, the United States of America, one parent does not have any priority over custody over another when the 2 people are married.
But it didn't have anything to do with him pulling up with pot. He wanted the baby, had his mom waiting in the driveway. That's what he did.
Miss Strawn, you weren't there. And the fact that you are so committed to the baloney story that you have concocted in your head, because I believe her when she says that when he came back with the baby and said she's smoking pot on the driveway. I believe he said it. You don't believe it?
I don't, ma'am.
That's your problem. In any event, you have to pay for his clothes. How much were the clothes worth?
The total for the uniforms was $508.
What kind of uniform?
My work uniforms.
What kind of work?
The job he doesn't have anymore.
Mechanic.
You really...
He just got out of jail, for God's sakes.
You are really thick. You're really thick. You're not paying attention to what I'm saying to you.
I'm paying attention.
No, you're not paying attention to what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is you're supposed to stay out of it. This genius picked this genius.
Yeah.
The only problem... Well, this is your genius, Miss Strawn. If he's no bargain, that's her problem. This genius belongs to you. She made a baby with him. He's not going to be out of your life. And that doesn't give you the right to vandalize his property. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $508. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it was the right decision because what she did was wrong.
I don't care what he says. I didn't burn his clothes.
I wasn't smoking pot in front of my child.
My wife was on the phone, and I heard her in the background saying that she was burning them.
That's not even true because Ashley wasn't even there.
That's hard to get young people to handle situations in an adult manner.
He's crazy.
There will be nothing between us except for my son, and I'm going to try to get custody of him.
He's not going to get him.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Nybert versus Sanders. Step forward, please.
Healthcare agent Catherine Nybert is suing her former friend, customer service rep Alicia Sanders, for the cost of a wedding cake. Alicia says the cake was a disaster and it ruined her wedding.
Miss Nybert, you and Miss Sanders were friends, knew each other from work, according to what I read in this complaint. And she was getting married. You agreed to make the wedding cake.
That's correct.
And your agreement was that you would make the cake. She had selected the cake. She had a picture of it. She would pay you for the ingredients, which were a couple of $100s. And the labor that went into making this cake would be your gift to her.
That's correct.
You made the cake, you delivered the cake, you didn't get your money.
That's right.
Mrs. Sanders says your cake ruined her wedding, it didn't taste good, it didn't look nice, and she's not paying for it.
That's right.
When she approached you, Miss Nybert, she showed you a picture, according to what I read.
That's correct.
Do you have that picture?
I do.
I'd like to see it. By the way, do you do this as a hobby or as...
It's basically a hobby. I do it for good friends and family. I just charge them cost. I do it out of a gift of love because I care about the person.
You have a picture of the finished wedding cake?
You bet I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I also have some pictures of the finished cake that
I'd like to see it, please. You have several.
Yes, I do.
See. Well, the cake isn't in this picture, right?
Nope. I just thought you'd like to see that I had a designer wedding gown, I had a beautiful wedding, and I was so excited to have a designer wedding cake.
Well, why didn't you order the one from a designer bake shop?
Because it cost $700.
Listen to me. So, well, that's what it costs?
Apparently, you're right.
Is this your first marriage? That's not a hard question.
No.
How many weddings have you had?
One. I went to Las Vegas. I was married for 3 months. He was deployed. We never lived together. This was the first wedding.
This is your...
Yes.
Okay. You bought a designer dress?
Yes.
How much did you pay for the dress?
$3,000.
You didn't spend $500 for a copy. Is that right?
That's right.
Shh. Just pay careful attention. Did you have expensive food at the wedding?
Yes.
How much did you pay per person?
I don't know per person. We didn't do it by per person. We did a buffet style. We spent about $1,000 on the food.
How many people did you have at this wedding?
About 400.
You had 400 people at the wedding and you spent $1,000 for food?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
You know, my mom helped us out with the food and everything.
You could stand up, please, when you talk to me.
Well, my mother helped us out with the food, so that cut down some of the expenses.
Our family made the food, so we didn't hire a caterer, so we had a lot of expenses cut. And this was another way that I thought I could cut my expenses.
Well,
and unfortunately, I should not.
So I want to explain to you, Miss Sanders, when you paid top dollar for your dress, you were satisfied with the product, is that right?
Yes.
If you had wanted a designer wedding cake, which according to your answer cost $700, you were not prepared to spend the $700. You were prepared to spend less, right?
Yes.
So you got somebody who was going to try to copy the cake that you wanted, right?
Yep.
A copy isn't an original.
That's right.
Right.
I found that out the hard way.
Right. Whether you found out the hard way, Miss Sanders, or the easy way, you owe Miss Nybert the money.
I didn't get what I asked
I'm
for.
speaking. Pay careful attention. You had a cake. It was the only cake you had there. The only one you had. And you displayed it. You didn't... I'm looking at your pictures. You displayed it with a lot of little flower girls who got their fingers in it.
Because nobody else wanted to eat it.
I am speaking. When I speak, you don't. Is this your first marriage?
Yes.
Good luck to you. You see, you displayed the wedding cake, and you had two little girls who were flower girls or members of the wedding party, or maybe just guests. They were there putting their fingers all over it and tasting the frosting. They didn't look as if they're still with us on this earth, are they not? So you displayed the wedding cake. You may not have liked it, but you used it. And when you use it, you pay for it. Do I make myself clear?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $200. That's all.
Sorry, Judge, excuse you may step out. Now this is case number 200 on the calendar in the matter of Galarzo versus Cosio. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Cosio, you are currently separated from your husband. Is that right? You've been separated for about 3 years. Yes. Is he here today?
Yes, he is.
Yes, I am.
And according to your answer in this case, you separated from him because he was abusive, had a drinking problem.
Yes.
That's why you separated.
Yes.
You filed for divorce.
He did.
He did in December.
Yes.
And hopefully that divorce will be finalized soon. The two of you have 2 children.
Correct.
The plaintiff is his fiancé.
Correct.
And you've been together for about a year.
Yes.
And you're planning to be married as soon as the divorce is finalized.
That's correct.
Do you live together?
Yes, we do.
How long have you been living together?
For about 8 months.
According to your complaint, you gave one of the girls, one of their daughters, who was graduating from elementary school.
Yes, that's correct.
3 outfits. And according to you, Ms. Casio destroyed those outfits. She was annoyed at something. And then later at the graduation made a terrible scene at the graduation.
Yes.
Which embarrassed and humiliated you. Ms. Casio says that the outfits weren't destroyed, and she says that you had no business being at the graduation. You should have stayed home. She told her separated husband that he shouldn't bring you, and he defied her and brought you, and that's what caused the incident at the graduation. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, let me straighten you out on that score because that's freshest in my mind. You have no business telling him who he can bring to his daughter's graduation. This child has 2 parents, and you're no more of a parent than her father is. You don't have any right to tell him who he can bring to the graduation and who he cannot. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
So what do you think gave you the right to tell your husband not to bring her to the graduation?
I didn't tell my husband, I told my daughter.
Ugh, that's even worse. That you told your daughter to tell her father that he should leave her home? Is that what you did?
Exactly, that's what I did, Judge.
You're outrageous. That's an outrageous thing to do on many fronts. First of all, you never use a child to transmit messages from one parent to another. Certainly nothing negative. If you want to say, listen, would you like to come to my house for a graduation party? That's a nice thing. But you never use a child as a telephone to transmit a negative message from one parent to another. That makes you a bad mother. You don't want to be a bad mother, do you?
No.
Well, I'm telling you that was something that only a bad mother would do. So I would rethink that. Having said that, you have no business directing what goes on at your daughter's graduation. It's not your graduation. It's your daughter's graduation. And unless your daughter doesn't want her for some reason, she should be there. She's part of her life. You may not like it. That comes under the category of too bad. You got to get used to it. You got it?
Yes.
You have any questions for me?
Nope.
Good. Now, what kind of a scene did you make at graduation?
I didn't make no scene.
What did she do at graduation?
Your Honor, I have a video cassette of her behavior.
I'd like to see it.
It's right here. And I have never met her, and why she acted this way and insulted me in front of everyone and made a scene, especially Erica started crying. The other daughter with her 3 infant, you know.
Excuse me? What did you call me? Stop it. What did you call me? Mom. That's what I told you. Why? Stupid. Because you are. It's Erica's graduation.
Why? You need God. You need God in your life.
Really?
Yes.
Mom, stop.
Yes. You do. I have never done anything to you.
Why did you call her? Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Why did you call her a name?
Because I was upset that she was there at my daughter's graduation, Judge.
You owe her an apology. You owe her an apology. Your behavior was outrageous. And I'm going to tell you something. If you don't decide that you're going to change your way of doing business, you're going to lose custody of your daughters. I'm telling you that. I'm an old family court judge. And I'm telling you that if you're going to put your daughters in between their parents, and if you're going to behave in an irrational way, you will eventually lose custody of your girls because they will say, I don't want to live with my mother, she's a nut. Now, what did you do with the outfits that she brought for your daughter? And I better get a truthful answer, otherwise I'm going to have to embarrass you and bring your daughter here. So I want you to tell me what you did with the 3 outfits.
I didn't do anything.
Where are they?
I don't know what she's talking about.
Your Honor, I have a recording of the daughter on June 24th where she called my cell phone and pictures of my outfits burned.
I'd like to see them, please. Where were these pictures taken?
Apparently, she burned them, and either she walked into my property or threw them right next to my truck, keyed my car, and I have a police report.
Oh, well, she's crazy. Sir, I think that you ought to go into court and seek custody of your daughters. I wouldn't let my daughter stay with her. There's something really wrong with her. Mr. Casio, step up. Step up, sir.
Yes, Your
Listen
Honor.
to me very carefully. How old are your daughters?
12 and 16.
Well, the 16-year-old daughter is going to tell you where she wants to live.
Okay.
And unfortunately for her, she probably will say, I have to stay with my mother because I feel sorry for her. But certainly, if her behavior continues to be so irrational, you might find it in your 12-year-old's best interest to pursue custody of that child, because somebody who behaves in this fashion is not capable of taking care of a child.
I agree.
That's my judgment. Now, 12-year-old probably is not in physical harm in her custody, but she certainly is emotionally in danger, being with somebody who has so much anger. Who are you?
I'm her friend.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, totally.
Is there anything that I said that you find wrong?
Not anything you said, but things she said.
Anything I said?
Not a thing that you said.
That's all. I said anybody who behaves this way for no reason, who can do this, who uses their child as a messenger for hateful messages, is a bad mother. Because a good mother doesn't do that. Go ahead.
Your Honor, I was spending the night before the graduation at Myrna's house to go to the graduation, and I...
Just a minute. You're her friend and you were going to graduation?
Yes.
What gives you the right to go to graduation as a friend?
Because her daughters like me.
What gives you the right as a friend to go to their graduation? Because their mother invited you?
Yes.
That's why she was there. Now let me ask you this question. Would you believe that he was acting like a nut if he came up to you and called you vile and vicious names and told you to get out because he didn't want you at the graduation? Would you think he was acting like a lunatic?
Not necessarily.
Well, what would you think of his behavior?
Listen, if I had been told prior to coming that I wasn't wanted there by my daughter calling...
Just a second. Her daughter did not say, I don't want you to come to graduation. No, listen to me very carefully, madam. She said, I told my daughter I didn't want her at the graduation. That's what she said.
Oh, let's bring Erica. She'll tell you what she wants.
I'm not going to do that, because that's what a bad mother would do.
She's not asking to bring Erica. I am.
I'm telling you, she didn't turn around and say to you, oh, I wouldn't do that to my daughter. She's a bad mother. She's so full of anger and hate in her heart that it obscures her judgment as far as being a good mother. And she better change, otherwise her daughters will grow up to hate her. They will hate her.
And as far as her going over there and doing whatever she claims she did, it didn't happen because I was with her.
I'd like to hear what the child said on the answering machine. Could you bring it up here, Bert, so I can listen to it?
Go ahead and press the middle bit. That's a message she left on my cell phone at 6:20.
My mom is burning your clothes. You think your daughter was lying when she says my mom is burning your clothes?
We had an argument that morning, Your Honor.
So you just think it's serendipity that your daughter calls and says my mom is burning your clothes, and the clothes turned up burned in front of her house? You think that those two things just came aligned in this universe? You better go see a good therapist, madam. You need a good therapist. Do you work?
Yes, I do work.
What kind of job do you have?
I'm a phlebotomist.
Better spend a little more time at work and a little less time hating. Spend a little less time hating. It didn't work out. 52% of the marriages in this country don't work out. She didn't steal him away from you. You threw him out. That's what you told me. You said you didn't like the way he behaved, so you threw him out. She found him. You should be grateful.
She can keep him.
Listen to me. That's right. You should be grateful instead of having a heart full of anger. Believe me, if you have a heart full of anger, you're never going to find anybody, madam. Okay. Nobody wants somebody who's miserable and angry. You'll spend the rest of your life alone.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Just listen to me carefully, and then try to put yourself on some medication, maybe.
And later today,
$1,000 to be awarded to the Player of the Year.
The only person that really came
was
right here.
Do you know what that makes him? Player of the Year.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Diana Galarzo says her fiancé's estranged wife, Myrna Cosio, owes for burning a graduation dress she bought for her daughter. Diana also says Myrna started an argument at the ceremony.
How much did you spend for the outfits?
I have the receipts here.
Just tell me how much you spent for the outfits.
180.
Now I'll take the receipts, Bird.
Plus pain and suffering and...
You don't get pain and suffering.
Loss of work and...
Listen to me very carefully, Ms. Galarzo.
Yes.
What you wanted was for her to learn a lesson. I don't know whether her ears were open. If they were, fine. If not, she's going to be the loser, as are her two children. She's responsible for the burnt clothes because she burned them. Her bad behavior has just been memorialized in front of 10 million people. Unless she changes her course of conduct, she's already been pre-warned that her children are going to grow up hating her. You can either put a period and move on and say, I had a marriage, it didn't work out. But out of this marriage came two lovely children. Just listen to me carefully. And then try to put yourself on some medication, maybe. If you don't already take it. I have two beautiful children. I want to devote myself to them and to making myself a happy life. And I don't want to be angry with somebody who's taking a burden off my shoulders. And you don't control what happens with your girls, because your girls have two parents. And you won't have them at all in your life if what you continue to do is to disrespect their father. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $180. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I was just upset because she was there at my daughter's graduation, and I didn't appreciate that.
Like Judge Judy says, she has to put a period and go on with her life.
She needs counseling, anger management, and I hope she gets it.
There's nothing to talk about.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Krill versus Sheets. Step forward, please.
19-year-old leasing agent Jennifer Krill is suing her ex-roommate, 21-year-old sales associate Christopher Sheets, for damage to their apartment and for his share of their security deposit.
All right, Ms. Krill, let me see if I understand what this rental situation was about. You were doing some part-time work in the leasing office of an apartment complex. In exchange for that, instead of giving you a salary, they gave you an apartment.
Correct.
And you decided that you would supplement your income by bringing in a roommate, Mr. Sheets,
Correct.
who I assume you knew from someplace,
Yes.
right?
Mutual friends.
And he would pay you a small amount of, like $100.
Yes.
And he moved in. He said, that sounds like a great idea to me. He gave them a check for the security deposit. And then, according to you, there was a misunderstanding. Mr. Sheets says that he had heard that you were bad-mouthing him, whatever. He didn't want to live there anymore. He moves out, and it is your claim that the $300 check for the security deposit bounced, that he did some damage to the apartment and some damage to your personal property.
Yes.
Mr. Sheets does not address the bounced check, and yet he acknowledges that he caused some damage to the apartment.
Correct.
And says to take it out of the security deposit.
Yeah.
So, let's cut to the chase. Where did you get this $300 check for?
At the time, my father and I had agreed that he would pay $300 for the security deposit.
And you wrote a check.
Correct.
What happened with that check?
My father and I have been disagreeing with each other lately, and then finally he said, I've had enough of it, and canceled the check.
So what you're telling me is your father stopped payment on the check?
The check had already been cashed, and I had been informed that by the leasing agent. My dad had reported it stolen or forged.
Because oh, just a second. Here we go. Now it gets more interesting, because this is the only interesting part so far of this case.
Yeah.
Your father reported the check stolen?
Correct.
And forged?
Correct.
So he wanted you arrested?
Well, he didn't want that, but he wanted to get it settled.
He didn't think that she forged the check.
Right.
You forged the check.
It wasn't, I didn't forge the check at the time.
He said that you forged the check.
I had turned in a check in his name, correct.
How did it end up that they no longer have $300 of the security deposit?
They should still have it. When I called the apartment complex manager, I told her that I wanted my security deposit back.
Let me see. Can I see that, please?
This is the check that has stolen and forged on it, and he forged his father's signature. I actually talked to his dad.
Oh, I see that the bank marked it stolen, do not present again.
Correct. His father called the bank and canceled the check that he forged.
Correct. I'm not denying that.
So that the rental company did not cash the check.
We cashed it, and then we got it back because obviously we can't have that money
So they
anymore.
gave the money back to him?
Yes, they had to.
I
because
see.
he did not sign the check.
Okay.
Jennifer Krill says ex-roommate Christopher Sheets damaged their apartment and her personal belongings. Jennifer claims Christopher punched holes in the walls and ruined her mattress.
Mr. Sheets, you're no longer living there, so you don't have to pay the security deposit.
Correct.
Let's start with that. Don't say correct. I'm giving you a gift here, sir.
Thank you.
But you do have to pay for the damage you did to the apartment.
Which I had explained to the leasing agent that I would take full responsibility for the damages that I had done.
Good. What did you do?
I had put a hole in the wall. I had also put a hole in the door in my room.
That sounds like a lot more than $300 to me.
It was $25 a hole is what I was told by her.
Do you have a bill for the damage that he did to
Yes,
the apartment,
I do.
please, Miss Krill?
This is for the
$120,
security
Spring Lakes Apartments. That's what you owe for the holes. And then, from your... Oh, well, this, listen to me. You're going to pay your own security deposit.
Okay, I was just giving that to you.
That's fair, right? You're there, you pay the security deposit. He's going to pay for the damage you did. Now the place is damage-free. Any other damage you caused while you're there, you pay for.
Yes.
I'm a reasonable person. Okay. Now, Miss Krill, you claim that Mr. Sheets damaged some of your property.
Yes. When I got back to the apartment, about 2 in the morning, with my friend Katie here,
Had there been an argument?
Yes, actually, he called me on the phone, on my cell phone, and he's yelling and screaming at me.
What is he yelling?
You know, how could you talk crap about me, da-da-da.
She was saying that you were living sort of off of her?
Correct. She was taking full advantage of her having the apartment for free and using it against me.
Using it against you by saying you're living there, you weren't paying enough.
Right.
I get a rent-free apartment, but I am working 20 hours a week for it, and he pays me $150 a month.
Yes.
And pays for food, and that's not a bargain.
So you were saying he got a bargain?
Yes.
And you took offense at that?
When she uses it against me is when I took it.
How did she use it against you?
Ruining my reputation between friends.
By saying what, Mr.
Just
Sheets?
talking trash behind my back. It happened several occasions.
All right, now you're not living together anymore. Come on, fill me in. It's late. I have things to do.
Well, he called me yelling on my phone. I went back to my apartment with Katie, only to find him and his friends throwing things down the stairs. There's mattresses, bed frames, boxes everywhere in the road. One of the neighbors in my apartment building.
Stuff.
Yes, his stuff. They called the cops because, it was a whole bunch of commotion. And I tried to go confront Chris. I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? He doesn't even want to talk to me. He's like, I'm moving out. That's it. Da-da-da. I'm like, okay. Can't stop him.
Can you tell me, please, what property you allege that he damaged that belongs to you? He already has to pay $120.
He urinated on my mattress, which was about $400.
Well, how do you know it was him?
I have pictures.
That's not my question. How did you know it was him?
Well, he was moving out all the stuff with 2 of his friends, so, he had the problem with me.
Let me see.
These are all the pictures.
So what you're claiming is it was either Mr. Sheets or one of his friends?
Yes.
He took all the food in the refrigerator?
Yes, everything.
Get over it. What else? I got the mattress and the holes.
The food, but that wasn't in the charge. That's the main things.
Let's talk about the mattress, Mr. Sheets.
I did not do that, Your Honor. I did not see anybody do that. I was out going to get a truck when I came back.
Were things being thrown out of the apartment, your things?
My items, yes.
Your items.
They were getting it out as fast as possible.
What time of the day or night was that happening,
It
Mr.
was
Sheets?
about 2:15 in the morning, I do believe.
Sir, so what you're telling me is at 2:15 in the morning in this apartment complex, you're throwing things down the stairs. There are other people that live there, is that right?
Correct.
That's not very mature, Mr. Sheets.
They were moving the things out while I was going to get a vehicle to take all the things to my new...
Well, you selected people who were not very mature to do the job, right?
Yes.
And if you select people that aren't very mature to move you out, and they are acting in an immature, rowdy fashion, whose responsibility is that?
Mine.
Right on. And while you were out getting a truck to take the stuff out of there that they were throwing down the stairs, you know what else they were doing? They were peeing on her mattress.
See, we do not know that for sure.
No, listen to me, sir. You know why I know that for sure? Because I don't think she peed on her own mattress. Listen to me very carefully, sir. When you invite people to do a job and you don't supervise them and you do it in an irresponsible manner at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have to assume the responsibility for everything bad that happens. How much was the mattress?
About $400.
What do you mean about $400?
My father bought it for me about 2 years ago.
Will you find another one for $200? Anything else, Miss Krill?
Yes, ma'am. He also urinated on about $100 worth of my clothes that were laying below my bed.
Where are they?
They're not with me anymore. I threw them away.
$320. Get over it. That's all. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out. This is case number 3 on the calendar in the matter of Hargrave versus Kirkendall. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
Mr. Hargrave, you own a store. Is
Yes,
it a
I do.
check cashing store or a convenience store?
Convenience store, Your Honor.
And you know the defendant for some time.
Yes, Your Honor.
She would come in, according to you, and cash checks. Other than buying things there, she would cash checks. And
Her and her
you would
husband, Your
cash
Honor.
checks for
Yes.
her.
Yes, Your Honor.
And your complaint is that she came in with a large check,
Yes, Your Honor.
$2,500, that you cashed for her,
Yes, Your Honor.
and it turned out to be a bad check.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Kirkendall says that she is sorry about that, but that she was the victim of a scam, and she didn't know the check was bad, and she's sorry.
Well, Your
okay?
Honor.
That's what the case is about. So I'm going to have to start with you. There are certain facts that I gather are not in dispute. A, there was a check for $2,500. You brought that check to the plaintiff, and the plaintiff cashed that check and gave you $2,500.
He didn't give it to me. It was sent Western Union that day.
He made out a money order?
Yeah, Western Union order.
He did?
First of all, I don't know this gentleman. I haven't seen him in the store.
Oh, he's the owner of the store, I
Okay.
assume.
Yes, Your Honor.
And it was not him, but another employee that works in the store.
Now you're going to tell me about the scam, Miss Kirkendall.
Okay, the girl that caught me off guard received a letter.
What do you mean the girl that caught you off guard?
The girl that sent the letter. She previously called.
What are you talking about?
How I got the check. How it all started.
Well, you're starting in the middle of a sentence. The girl caught you off guard. I don't understand that.
Heavy depression. I just lost my 21-year-old son. So I received this letter during the depression.
You received the letter in the mail?
Right.
Let me see the letter.
And that's the death certificate to prove that my son did.
I don't need the death certificate. It has nothing to do with this case. Well, first of all, I'm reading this letter, and this letter, dated January 17th, 2005, is allegedly from somebody by the name of Sherry, who is telling you from Australia that you have won $50,000. However, Sherry is illiterate. You're not illiterate, are you?
No.
All right. I'm just reading a paragraph to you from this letter. So I'm mailing in regards to know why you have not made any effort to claim your money. So I'm mailing in regards to know why.
Right.
I don't know why somebody will wait that long to claim their money, T-H-E-R-E. Their money. You responded to this letter? Just a second. I mean, it gets worse.
Yeah, it does.
To elaborate more, this draw was held in Australia. And if we don't hear from you in 3 days, your file will be closed, C-L-O-S-E, and you will no longer be able to claim your winnings. Okay. Go ahead. So you got this letter, and then they tell you what? They tell you that they're going to send you a check for $2,550, and you have to cash that check and send them back a money order. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? So they send you a check for $2,550. You take that check from the same person, from Sherry, from Sherry, this illiterate, and you take it to this man's store.
I called the bank.
You called what bank?
I called the bank that the check was drawn on.
Let me see.
This is the second check she sent me. The first check came back clear. The bank said it was good and everything.
Well, show me. Show me where the bank said it was good.
Well, I don't.
Show me the bank.
It was all done verbally because we went.
No, my dear.
I called on the phone and I went to the bank to cash it at the bank because they said it was good.
So why didn't they take care of it there?
Because they wanted me to open an account. I didn't have an account with them. And they said any check cashing place would do it. So that's when I went to the store.
No. So then you took it there.
And they called on it.
Who called on it? Did somebody from your end call on it?
Yes, Your Honor. We called. What it was is we can't verify that there's funds in the account. We can verify that that individual is in good standing with the bank. Being that she has such a history cashing checks with us, she cashed one September of '03 for $2,800. So we couldn't verify that there was funds in there, but we took her word for it.
What do you mean you took her word for it?
We asked her, if this check comes back, will you be able to, honor it? If for any reason something happens to it.
Sir, that's a lot of baloney. First of all, you can't testify to that because you weren't there. You didn't deal with her. This man didn't deal with her.
Actually, I
Where
was
is
there,
the what?
I was there. He authorized me cashing the check. Mike, another one of my associates.
She says you weren't there.
Have you read the police report, Your Honor? I don't think she knows what was going on.
Let me see it. You were there? You were present?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. Well, she says you weren't, so I was under the impression you weren't
Mike was the individual that sent the Western Union.
Who are you, sir?
I'm her husband.
Oh, I'd like to see you. Get up. What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm an electrician.
You read English?
Yes, I do.
Did you read this letter? Just a second. You read this letter that looks as if it was written by some illiterate?
We made fun about the letter. We laughed about it, the way it was written.
You did?
Yes. We thought it was a scam from the beginning.
Right! So why did you involve him with your scam?
We called the bank. I know this is hearsay, but we called...
It sure is hearsay, sir.
We gave them the check number, and that's what they verified.
What do you mean? You mean you called and you gave them the check number and the bank told you that over the phone?
Yes.
Your wife just told me she went there. Just a second. Your wife just told me she went there.
We called the bank first to verify it was good. Then we went to the bank to try and cash it. That's when they told us that it was a corporate money order and that we had to open up an account.
I don't believe you. And even if I believe you, listen to me, even if I believe you, anybody who got this letter and who believes in good faith that this isn't a crank is an idiot.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You read the letter, you made fun of it. You thought it was a scam.
But the
if you
bank
had
said it was
listen to me.
And later today,
Your cake ruined her wedding, it didn't taste good, it didn't look nice, and she's not paying for it.
I didn't get what I asked for.
I'm speaking.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Convenience store co-owner Steve Hargrave Jr. says former customer Catherine Kirkendall cashed a phony check for $2,500 in his store.
I have to decide whether you had sufficient knowledge or should have had sufficient knowledge that this was a hoax before you go to some unsuspecting place and cash this check. Now, if everything looked really legitimate, if it looked like you were being contacted by the prize patrol, I would say, well, maybe you were legitimately scammed. But I have to find that you didn't walk around with your head in the sand. This suggests to me that two people who've lived as long as you and your wife have lived, who work, who are employed, who read and write English, had to have had notice that this was bad. Did you ever see this letter, sir?
No, I certainly wouldn't cash
Just
the
a
check,
second.
Your Honor.
You think that if he saw this letter, that this was a prize patrol letter, he would have cashed your check from this illiterate? I guarantee you he wouldn't have. Guaranteed.
But he was told where the check came from.
Listen to me. Okay. You didn't show him this letter, did you?
No.
He didn't ask for it, Your Honor.
I don't care whether he asked for it or not. You and your husband, listen to me. You and your husband, according to your husband, had real misgivings after reading this letter. You thought it was a scam. You think that if you showed him this letter, he might not have cashed the check? The answer is, we'll never know. You didn't show it to him. You didn't tell him about it. You didn't say, listen,
yes,
I
did.
Just a second. You told him you got a letter that sounded like it was written by an illiterate? You told him you got a letter that sounded as if...
He asked where I got the check from, what it was for, and I told him for some winnings.
Some winnings?
The employee...
Shh. Did you tell him you got a letter that sounded as if it was written by an illiterate?
No. I told him I received a letter stating I got some winnings.
Just answer my question. Did you tell him that you got a letter that was very suspicious to both you and your husband?
I told him it did sound suspicious because he
I don't believe you.
He even said it sounded fishy.
No, he said the scheme sounded fishy. I'm asking you whether you showed them the letter and whether you said that the letter sounds as if it was written by an illiterate on an internet piece of paper.
No, I didn't show him the letter.
Comes to you handwritten in this envelope.
Right.
So, let me tell you what the law is, as I perceive it. And since I am the ultimate arbiter of what's right and wrong, you're stuck with it.
Can I say something first, please?
Sure.
They called on the check.
Just a second. Hearsay.
No, I watched him call the check. He verified, he kept me there for a half hour calling on the check. This gentleman here asked the employee that was calling the check, says what was wrong, because I was there for a half hour, and the guy says he were having problems with the bottom numbers. He gave him the okay to cash the check.
Listen to me. Now we're going to start again from the beginning. You received this in the mail.
Right.
Handwritten, no return address, looked like it was written from someone who was just released from a psychiatric institution on a piece of computer-generated stationery that is replete with misspellings, bad grammar, from some organization that has told you that you have won $50,000. Now, you have to be an idiot to take one step further and go any further instead of taking this letter and ripping it up and throwing it in the garbage. But you had this information, and if you had taken this letter to this store and this man would have seen this letter, there isn't a question in my mind that he would not have invested $2,500 in this scam. You tend to lose nothing. You have lost nothing. You had the information to save him. You chose not to give him this information despite the fact that you had this information, and according to your husband, you read the letter, you made fun of it. You thought it was a scam.
But the bank said it was good.
Listen to me. If you had said to him, listen, I'm going to share with you all the information that I have. This is the letter I got. And if, after you did that, the plaintiff chose to cash your check and to turn over $2,500 of his money, I would say he's as dumb as you are, and he deserves what he gets. But right now, you had withheld from him this information, and you're stuck because he shouldn't be out the money. Put your hand down. He shouldn't be out the money because he wasn't armed with the information that you had. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,550. Thank you. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
If he was hesitant, he shouldn't have cashed it, but he got the okay to cash it, and he cashed it.
We've been cashing checks for a long time for him. I had no question to, doubt the validity of the check.
I was in a depression, a heavy depression, so I just thought some luck would be coming our way.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Damon versus Ressa, step forward, please.
21-year-old bartender Amber Damon is suing her former friend, 21-year-old subcontractor Samuel Ressa, for crashing her car, forcing her to drop out of fashion school.
According to what I read in your complaint, on the evening of January 26, 2005, you were all out drinking. You had a car. You drove to a bar. You were drinking and had too much to drink. A lot of other people were drinking too. Somebody wanted to go home. Somebody by the name of Jason. Who's Jason? Raise your hand. You still drink, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah. How did I know that? How did I know that? Jason wanted to go home. You told the defendant, could you take him home? And you gave the defendant your car keys to take Jason home.
He'd already had the car keys.
Whatever. He didn't steal the car keys from you. You gave him the keys. He took Jason home, came back to the bar.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's the last time you saw your car. The car was subsequently found. It was wrecked a little bit, and it was taken to impound. and you couldn't get your books and stuff for school out of the trunk so that you couldn't go to school, and you ended up losing tuition because you ended up backing out of school for that semester. A whole series of events that you believe should be visited on Mr. Reese's doorstep, right?
Correct.
Because he didn't take good care of the car.
Yes.
Was the car a used car?
Yes.
Was it insured?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get insurance money for it?
No, because the towing place sold it without the lien notice, so they're going to end up having to pay for it.
So you're off the hook with regard to the car?
Yes.
So all you're suing him for is for the trauma that you incurred as a result of missing school because you couldn't get to your books that were inside the car?
Yes. There's more to it than that, though.
Let's hear it fast.
Well, we would go out every Wednesday, and I'd had a couple beers, so I didn't feel comfortable driving. And I thought I was being responsible by asking him to take Jason over to our house. And then he came back safe and sound, and later on I didn't plan on leaving, so I didn't ask for my keys back or anything. And he had wanted to leave, but I just assumed that he was getting a ride or whatever, and he apparently took my car.
It's not what he says. He says he walked home. It was a couple of blocks away.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have stuff, maybe not proving, but it really looks like he took my car.
Well, what do you have that suggests that he took your car later?
Well, I was going to fashion design school, so I remember what people wear, and I specifically remember him wearing a hat when he came back after dropping Jason off, and I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
Miss Damon, I want you to listen to me very carefully, my dear. There is no question in my mind that under the scenario that you gave me, that you had given him the keys to the car, and that was the last time you saw the car, and the car had in fact been in an accident. I think I would have been prepared, despite the fact that Mr. Risa says I walked home, to say it was your responsibility to safeguard this car. Based upon what I read in the papers, the car was found with the keys in the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, if somebody found the keys, they had to be very smart to find the keys and say, I think I want to go try the ignitions of all the cars, and I'm going to go check all the cars and see if any of this fits. So I think I would have been able to say, with a fair degree of certainty, that the defendant was responsible for your car. But you have no out-of-pocket expenses for your car. You want him to pay for your school tuition. And I'm telling you, Miss Damon, you have to be more resourceful, my dear. There are methods that you can use to get your books out of the trunk of the car so that you can study and go to school without dropping out of school. That's not his fault.
There was no way that I could get them because they were no longer there. And there was also the police department was throwing me around too because it wasn't registered in my name yet because I hadn't even made a payment on it. I just bought in the car, not even a month before that. So they were telling me I wasn't even going to be able to look at it.
Well, you managed to get the hat. Did you go to your teachers and say, listen, I need a little time, I have to get new books?
We were almost to midterms and all of the projects led off of each other. So there was no way that I could make them up, and they told me I had to withdraw for that semester.
That's not Mr. Reese's fault, Ms. Damon. I can't legitimately find that your dropping out of school was the proximate cause of Mr. Reese's actions. It doesn't work that way. You have to take a certain amount of responsibility for taking your car, drinking, giving the keys to somebody else. That's partially your responsibility. I would have said Mr. Reese was responsible if he had any out-of-pocket expenses for the car, but not for your school tuition. Sorry, case is dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why is that excused, Mr.? Yeah, this is case number 83. Excuse me, 83 on the calendar in the matter of Sandoval versus Alvarez. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
And you were working at the same place where Mr. Alvarez was working. What do you do for a living?
I was a server. First, I started as a hostess, and I ended up as a server.
And what about Mr. Alvarez?
He was my manager.
Now, you decided to join an employee program, but not an official program, for savings.
Yeah.
Tell me how it worked.
It's kind of like something to save money. The person in charge gets 10 people together. And Johan right here was the person in charge of it. He got 10 people to participate. Then after you get the 10 people to commit to it, you get numbers, you put them in a cup, everybody gets their number. Each paycheck, you will have to give in $100. The first time you put in the $100, number one gets $1,000. Next paycheck, everybody puts in another $100, number two gets their part of the money. I was number 11. I was the last number in it because I was planning to save my money to purchase a car.
So he was in it too?
Yeah, he was number one.
He was number one?
Yes.
Did we all draw at the same time?
No, he said since he was the person in charge, he will receive his money first, and everybody else got a number. Actually, with me, I requested number 11, so I know that by the end of it, I would have my money and I didn't have to go back and finish paying anybody.
And how much money did you put in?
$1,000.
But you quit your job before you had actually accumulated $1,000.
Yeah, I actually quit when I was, I believe, in number 3. But I also talked to him and I told him I will be responsible enough to bring the $1,000 every date that it was supposed to be.
You mean
due.
$100?
Yeah, the $100.
And did you do that?
Yes, every time.
Who did you give the money to when you came back each week?
Okay, the next 2 numbers, he was there when I went to go drop off the money.
Yes.
So I gave him to him personally, and I asked him, since I don't work here anymore, for my safety, in case any problems happen, I would like you to sign my paper every time I give you the money.
And did he do that?
Yeah, he signed 1 through 5, all the times that I showed up that he was there. But after the 5th time, I believe he started getting weekends off, which was the days we were supposed to turn in the money. We got paid on Friday, so you would have 2 days after that to turn in your money, which was Saturday or Sunday. And then after that, I would go to the restaurant and just give it to the person personally because we had a list, and I knew exactly who was next and who was supposed to get the money, so I would go and give it personally to the person. But when it was my turn to give the money to, I talked to Johan and told him, when can I go pick up my money? And I never got my money, so I went on Sunday.
Well, what did Mr. Alvarez say when you said, I want my money now?
Oh, well, actually, this was his excuse. He told me, Soma, you know what? I'm having problems with the money. So I told him, I understand problems happen. And he actually gave me his word that 100% that he was going to have it for the 29th.
29th of what month?
April. Actually, I showed up on the 31st, 2 days after. And I asked him if he had my money. But he had called me already, which I didn't check my voicemails, telling me he had a problem. So I was like, oh, man, we just...
Well, what did he tell you the problem was this time?
He claimed that he got pulled over by the cops and that he didn't know he had a restriction order, like, for his arrest, because something had happened with his license or something, and that they took him into jail and he had to pay a bail out of $1,000, which he had to use my money to get out. So I said, that's not my problem. I need...
How are you, ma'am? How you doing?
Don't ask me how I'm doing.
Okay. To begin with, when we joined this saving, everybody was aware of it. That
don't tell me what everybody was aware of. Where's her money?
I told them.
Where's her money?
The money, I do not owe her anything. Okay? I told her, and I begin with, to everybody, whoever's going to quit the job is not going to receive the money. I'm not going to be responsible.
Just a second. Okay.
Okay.
So shh, please, don't speak. Now it's Mr. Alvarez's turn. So let me take your hands off your hips. Okay. So let me understand. You say that you explained to everybody
exactly
that you say that you explained to everybody that if they quit the company, they lost their money. Is that what you say?
Yes, ma'am.
And Miss Sandoval was told that if she left the company, she would lose her money.
Right. I would.
That's what you.
Right.
Is that
That's
what you just told me?
Yes.
When did you leave the company?
I think I don't have the exact date, but I believe it was after the 3rd number. Actually, it was a day after New Year's. I remember.
So the beginning of January 2005. Yeah. When had you started to put in your money?
I started 11/26/04.
Do you get paid every week or every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. So what we're talking about is the entire month of December, which is when you would have put in your money.
Yes.
Minimally 2, maybe 3
around there.
times you contributed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct so far, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now let me see where you say he signed off on the money. Well, Mr. Alvarez, you gave her what amounts to a receipt for 5 payments.
Yeah, exactly. I told her.
Shut.
Okay.
Mr. Alvarez, let's recap what you just told me, sir. You told me that you explained to Miss Sandoval that if she left the company, she would lose her money.
Right.
She left the company after putting in 3 payments.
Yes, we had a
I'm
talk.
speaking.
Okay.
But then you accepted 2 more payments from her after she left the company, sir.
Yeah, because we had a talking.
No, we didn't.
Just a second. Well, now he's changing it, you see. Now he's changing it.
I'm not changing it. I did not finish. You didn't let me finish what I said.
You finished enough, sir.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
They were peeing on her mattress.
We do not know that for sure.
Listen to me, sir. You know why I know that for sure? Because I don't think she peed on her own mattress.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Salma Sandoval says former co-worker Johan Alvarez scammed her out of $1,000.
Mr. Alvarez, are you trying to tell me that you never said to Miss Sandoval, because it's very easy for me to figure out, and it's very easy for me to find out by picking up the phone and calling the police, that you never said to her, I got pulled over by the police,
Sure.
and I needed $1,000 in bail?
Yes, I did.
Now, why in the world, Mr. Alvarez, would you tell her that you needed $1,000 bail if you didn't have her $1,000?
I had the money with me, okay?
No. No. Now we're getting somewhere, madam. Go ahead. You had the money with you.
I had the money, and I told her when I did call her, I said, I'm going to set up a date with you so I can give you the money because I don't want nobody to come to my job.
Just a minute. So now you acknowledge that she put in $1,000 to the savings plan.
No, I'm not acknowledging it. She was giving the money to somebody else.
I don't care who she was giving it to, sir.
Well, she wasn't giving it to me.
I don't care if she was giving it to you or not. The money was turned over to numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It was now her time. She has turned in the money so that everybody got paid in full $1,000. Now you've got the $1,000 and you get pulled over by the police.
I did not have the $1,000 with me. I told her that I was going to be responsible to give the money so we could get over with it. Because she was calling me on the phone and harassing me. She went to my job. She bring the boyfriend out there that she has. She bring him to try to fight.
Did you use $1,000 for bail?
No. Not her money. It was my money.
Just a second.
It was my money.
No, it wasn't.
It was
you got your money already.
No, it was my money. Okay, so...
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, ma'am.
She's telling me the truth, that you told her, I had your money, but I got into trouble and I needed to use the $1,000 for bail. She didn't make that up, sir.
Your Honor, I did have money on me. Okay, I did not have to use her money. The only thing was she was coming to me. She was harassing me on my job. She went to tell everybody on my job that I was a thief and I'm stealing money.
You are. You took her money. You are. You took her money.
Ma'am, and then she didn't stop that. She went to the president of the company to tell him.
Good for you.
Sure did.
Good for you.
Exactly.
Because he told me that he was going to lend them the money.
And then the president of the company called me and said, get it over with. I don't want to hear it.
And I'm telling you the same thing, my dear.
And then
the first person who got paid this $1,000 was who?
It was me.
And the last person that's going to get paid this $1,000 is her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I knew he was going to try to lie. He lied to me more than 5 times.
He went to try to intimidate me, I guess.
I didn't threaten him. What I told him was he needed to cough up money.
I feel like he didn't try to scam me, but he got caught up in a way where he wasted the money. He had no way of paying me, so he had to find different excuses.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Spandy versus Greta, step forward, please.
Computer operator Tim Spandy is suing his daughter's former friend, 18-year-old event coordinator Tom Grether, for wrecking his wife's car. Tom says he was driving because Tim's daughter was drunk.
Mr. Spandy, this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Your daughter was driving your car?
No, she wasn't.
Whose car was she using?
It was my wife's car.
So your daughter was driving your wife's car with your permission. She goes to a party or some sort of gathering, and this young man was there. She got too drunk to drive home. She asked him to drive home. He was also drunk. He totaled the car. You want him to pay for the car.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
And Mr. Grether says Well, he has certain responsibility. He doesn't have total responsibility. Your daughter has partial responsibility. Okay. When was this party?
February 13th.
At a house?
Yeah.
Did you know Mr. Grether before the party?
Yes, I did.
Okay. How much did you drink?
I think I had like 4 cups of beer.
Why did you drink if you were driving?
I was planning on staying over.
So why didn't you stay over?
Because there's some drama about missing pieces, and then all of
Missing pieces? What?
Bongs.
What is that?
Stuff you smoke marijuana out of.
There was drama about some drugs.
Yeah.
What kind of drama was there about drugs?
One kid accused one of Tom's friends of stealing piece.
So there was some drama, so you wanted to go home?
Well, because all of Tom's friends were leaving, and Tom invited us to the party. We didn't know the people whose house it was at, so we all decided to leave and go back to Tom's.
And you were too drunk to drive?
Yeah.
So you really didn't have good judgment?
Yeah.
What about Tom?
Well, my friends said they gave him a drunk test and see if he could walk a line and if he had slurred speech, and he said he stopped drinking 2 hours before that.
So you had your friends, your drunken friends, give him an alcohol sobriety test. Is that what you're telling me, Miss Spandy?
Yes.
And your slightly inebriated friends told you that he was sufficiently sober to drive your mother's car?
Yeah.
Tell me how you totaled her mother's car.
We were driving down a dirt and gravel road, and the car had spun out, and we had crashed into a tree.
All right, I will hear you.
Yeah. Before we started driving, he decided to whip a donut in a cul-de-sac, which was a dirt road. And I'm like, Tom, you need to stop. And he was like, okay, I used to drive a Ford Contour, I have total control. And so then he stops, and then he was like, hey, look at this. And I saw his hand reaching for the emergency brake, but I don't really know if he pulled it or whatever. It just happened too fast. We lost control, and then we ran into a tree.
I was only kidding. I actually never got grasped with the emergency brake. 3 other vehicles ahead of me had spun out at the exact same spot that I had spoke with afterwards. They were all driving
What I
SUVs.
don't understand, Mr. Spandy, is why you think your daughter is not at least partially responsible for what happened that night.
Well, for one thing, the defendant here, he was driving with a suspended license. He knew he was not supposed to be behind the driver's wheel at all.
He was Your Honor.
Put your hand down. They were all drinking and doing marijuana.
I understand that.
Mr. Spandy, your daughter took her mother's car and acted irresponsibly with it. She drank. She was probably smoking marijuana. She gave the car to somebody who was given a field sobriety test by a bunch of other teenage alcoholics. And you think she bears no responsibility?
Well, he should have known right from wrong. I mean...
He was wrong. There's no question he was wrong. You don't take your mother's car and then drink.
I agree.
And you don't take your mother's car and then drink and do bongs or whatever they are. What you do is, if you think that you're going to drink, you say, Dad, would you drive me to the party and pick me up? Or if you don't intend to drink and then you go to the party and you drink, you say, give me the phone, I'm going to call my father to come pick me up. She could have done that too, right?
Yes, and that's what she's been instructed to do.
But you mean before this incident, you told her if you drink, call us, we'll come pick you up, right? So she did the wrong thing.
Yes.
That's all I'm asking you, Mr. Spandy. I'm not saying that Mr. Grether here is going to get off scot-free, but what I'm telling you is your daughter bears some responsibility for what happened that night.
I agree. I mean, she was in the wrong, but for somebody of his age, a little bit older, selling alcohol and all that other stuff going on. That.
How old is your daughter?
17.
And how old are you?
I'll be 19 in a few weeks.
Listen, she's 17, he's 18. You know how much longer it takes a boy to mature than it takes a girl to mature?
Yes.
I just want you to take a look at him. Take a look at him. You'll understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, I understand completely.
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
All right. So don't tell me that he's so much older and is selling liquor. She's 17 years old. She shouldn't be drinking 5 beers, right?
I understand that.
Bad judgment.
Yes, very.
And if you start...
May I please add on the...
Don't say anything.
Sorry.
All right. Start with this premise, Mr. Spandy. But for the fact that your daughter did the wrong thing, you would not be standing here today.
Correct.
She did the wrong thing 3 times. took the car, she drank.
Yes.
Instead of calling you to come pick her up, she gave the car keys to him. But for her actions, he, who's not any older than she is, would not have control of the car. He didn't steal the car keys. He didn't grab them out of her pocket. She was drunk, he was drunk. They're just lucky they're not dead.
Yes.
So the car was totaled.
Yes.
Did you have insurance?
I only had liability, no collision, so the insurance company would not pay for it.
When did you purchase the car?
I purchased it 8/25/04.
And how much did you pay for it?
We paid a little over $4,300. Other charges incurred that night was towing fee and pound lot, and that was over $200.
So you paid $43 plus another $2.
Yes.
Half $4,500 is $2,250. $2,250 is his responsibility. The other $2,250 is your daughter's responsibility. I suggest that you see to it that she takes care of it.
Oh, she's already taken care of the other car we have purchased.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,250. That's all.
Parties have excused. Yeah, this is case number 58 on the calendar in the matter of Domzowski versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Ms. Domzowski, according to your complaint, Mr. Wilson used to be your boyfriend. He's not your boyfriend anymore, and he assaulted you twice. After he assaulted you, I assume you had nothing to do with him.
That's correct.
How long were you involved with him for this assault?
Well, I dated him originally back when I was in high school.
How old are you now?
I'm 22. When I had first dated him, I was 16. And then we broke up, and we got back together in August 11th of 2004.
When was the assault?
January 10th, 2005.
Tell me about it.
Well, Brian and I we were at a bar, and we had gotten into an argument. He mentioned something about a friend of his who I had dated while we were separated, and how he was going to come back into town, and he wanted to see how I was going to react to his friend being back in town to see if we're going to try to reunite.
Mr. Wilson, you're going to get a chance.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we were arguing about that, and I told him, I wouldn't cheat on you. I care too much about you. And so he left the bar. He wound up leaving. So I went after him to make amends,
Why would you go after him to make amends? What had you done wrong?
I hadn't done anything wrong. I was just trying to talk to him, just to make sure, that we were okay, because I didn't want it to end on that.
What had you been drinking?
A beer, a Corona.
And you?
A Corona.
How many?
I had like 1 or 2.
Let's say 2.
Okay.
What about you?
I had probably about 1.5 before I got fed up.
Let's go to 2.
2.
So you've had a couple of beers and you're arguing at the bar. You couldn't argue at home?
That's how it goes every time we went out. Every time we went out, it was a big scene.
Okay. So now you're outside trying to make amends for something that you didn't do. What happened outside?
Outside, I went to my car to retrieve his jacket because he was like, I'm walking home, and I offered him a ride, and he refused. So
what did you say? You said, don't walk, I'll drive you home?
Yes, I said, I will take you to the house. And
how far is the house from the bar?
About 5 minutes driving.
How long walking?
I don't know, like a half an hour maybe. I'm not really sure.
How long a walk is it?
Oh, half hour.
Good. So we agree on that. So you wanted to walk home?
Yeah.
So even though he's walking home without his jacket, you went to the car, got his jacket, and followed him?
Yes.
Go ahead.
That's when we started arguing some more. He pushed me. I went into a tree. My face was bloody.
How did your face get bloody?
I was scratched up. He hit me.
You didn't say he hit you. You said he pushed you into a tree.
Yeah,
when did he hit you?
He pushed me into a tree, and he hit me also afterwards.
He hit you with an open hand or a closed hand?
Open hand.
What happened then?
I was walking along the street by the bar, and I was spitting blood. I had blood coming from my mouth. So that's when I called my sister, and I needed her to come pick me up to give me a ride back to my car because I had walked a little. It was a distance when I was walking with him because we were talking.
You were talking or fighting?
Well, we were fighting.
Go ahead.
And I was crying, spitting up blood. My face was all bloody, so I had my sister come pick me up.
How long did it take her to get there?
She was at the bar as well, so it took her like 2 minutes. She was there real quick because she heard how upset I was.
So you and your sister came in 2 separate cars?
Yes.
She came, picked you up in her car, and what did you do when she picked you up in the car?
She was cleaning my face. We cleaned my face off.
And then?
And then I went back over to the house to collect my belongings to leave. And he came in, he had a piece of pizza in the microwave, and he intentionally threw it.
Just a second, hold it. You're home first, is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
And then he came home.
He came home while I was packing my belongings.
How did the pizza get into the microwave?
The pizza was already there, Your Honor.
Pizza was in the house already, and he was taking it out to heat it up?
Yes.
So he heated up the pizza in the microwave. Go ahead.
And then we continued arguing, and that's when he intentionally threw the pizza at my face.
How did he do that?
He had the pizza in his hand, and he threw it.
And it hit your face, and it burned your face?
Yes.
Okay. So he left the bar, Amy, to get away from the argument and was walking home. So what I want to know is how the argument continued.
We were arguing about financial problems.
How did it start? Who said what to whom?
I believe it was I who had said something in regards to the financial.
That sounds right. So what did you say financial?
Basically that I do a lot for him and he doesn't respect me. You know, basically trying to show him that why would I cheat on him when I'm going grocery shopping, all the bills are in my name.
So you wanted to continue the discussion?
Yes.
You weren't
I wasn't trying to argue.
Shh. You wanted to continue the discussion, not just pack up and leave, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and he's sitting there. He's not saying a word to you.
No, he was saying things.
Not before you approached him to start the discussion again, right? I'm just figuring out what's happening here, Amy.
Okay, that's correct.
Do you understand? Mm-hmm. I'm not making any excuses for him if he hurt you. I want you to get real with what was happening that night. What was happening that night was you weren't letting it go. Because if you're assaulted and you call your sister because you were so upset and your sister comes to get you in the car, then you say to her, do me a favor, follow me to Mom's house because I'm going to stay there. Tomorrow I'll get the police and go over and pick up my stuff. But if you want to go back and continue the discussion with him, and you knew he was going home because he said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. I'm walking home to cool off. So you knew he was going home, and you followed him home.
No, because I figured that I would get there quicker than he would and have my stuff already packed and ready to leave.
So let's see what we have. We have a timeline here. You call your sister on the phone. She has to get out to the parking lot, get into her car, start the car, come and pick you up. A couple of minutes. Then you said she helped clean you up because you were bleeding. Let's say that took another 10 minutes. So now you got 5 minutes before he's going to be home.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you go home anyway. So you expected him to be home. There's no question in my mind. So don't tell me you didn't expect him to be home yet. You expected him to be home. And you wanted to continue the discussion because you weren't ready to let it go.
Because I didn't want to be accused of something that I would never do.
What difference does it make? Somebody hits you in the face, as you allege he hit you in the face. Who cares whether he accuses you of being Matahari? What difference does it make? You want to get away from him.
Yes.
You don't go back into a situation where there's been, according to you, violence, and start the discussion all over again by telling him, why would I want to do something bad to you? I cook for you, I clean for you, I work for you, I do everything else for you. That's what you were telling him, right?
Yes. Why would you do this to me? Basically, that's what I was trying to say, Your Honor.
What difference does it make?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How old are you?
27.
27. I'm a few years older than you are.
You don't look
and
it.
You're very, very sweet, Mr. Wilson. It's not going to help you any.
And later today,
you could have been married to this warped thinking, allowed children to reproduce with this warped thinking. So I want you to consider yourself very lucky.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amy Domzlowski says ex-boyfriend Brian Wilson owes for burning her face with a slice of pizza. Brian says the argument started when he saw Amy dancing with another man.
Now the ball is in your court, Mr. Wilson. Don't smile at me, because let me explain something to you. How old are you?
27.
27. I'm a few years older than you are.
You don't look
and
it.
You're very, very sweet, Mr. Wilson. It's not going to help you any. And you know how long I've been eating pizza? A lot longer than you have. I never knew a pizza to fly off a plate and hit somebody in the face. How many flying pizzas did you know in your years? Never.
0.
We never knew a flying pizza. So with that in mind, Mr. Wilson, let's go back to, you're in the bar with Miss Amy.
Right.
Both had a couple of beers. Now.
I saw her dancing with somebody on the dance floor. I didn't want to stand for it, so I left the bar.
So you saw her dancing with somebody?
Right. Supposedly it was just a friend, but, you know, I don't know that friend, so it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I left the bar. I'm walking down the street, She comes running up behind me, you know, hit me, trying to pull on my shirt. She actually ripped the shirt that I had underneath my button-up shirt.
Well, tell me what she said to you as she was pulling on your shirt.
What the is my problem? Why are you leaving? You know, so as I'm walking home, she's still pulling at me, you know, yelling, you know, because when she drinks and is under the influence of other drugs, you know, she's a live wire.
Was she under the influence of other drugs?
I say so.
What other drug?
Marijuana.
Did you see her smoking marijuana that day?
Yeah.
Were you smoking marijuana
No.
that day? But she was.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
So as we continue to the house, finally, you know, she gave up. You know, after my shirt's ripped, she goes back to the car.
So you don't know anything about hitting her in the face?
I didn't. She might have caught like some buttons from trying to pull on my shirt and me just defending myself to, you know, just so I can walk home and avoid the whole situation, because we could have fought if we really wanted to fight in the bar. Okay. You know, but that's the whole reason why I walked home, so I didn't have to do that.
Go ahead.
So then once we get home, I'm already home and sitting in the living room. She comes in and it continues again. She's not trying to talk it out or anything like that. She's yelling. You know, a little pushing, you know, I got the pizza in my hand.
Now let's go through this slowly.
No problem.
Little pushing. How did the pushing get started?
Defense pushing. Like defense pushing. You know, when she talks to you here. She don't talk to you from a distance.
So you're pushing her away from you.
Right, as I'm walking from the kitchen to the living room, back and forth. So finally I had the plate in my hand, and, you know, she's trying to, you know, tangle with me, and it accidentally hit her in the face.
I assume you felt very sorry when you found out she had been burned.
I drove her to the hospital the next day.
Is that right?
No. I called him when he was at work, and I said, I need to go to the hospital. And he said, well, come pick me up from work, and we can go to the hospital.
Had you stayed at your mother's that night?
Yes.
Who else lives in your mother's house?
My mom, my stepbrother, and my stepfather.
They couldn't take you to the hospital?
No, I was going to go by myself, and he said, I'll go with you, because he felt bad.
Why would you want the person who assaulted you to go with you to the hospital?
He said he would go with me.
And when you got to the hospital, what happened?
They looked at it. They said it looked really bad. They referred me to a plastic surgeon.
Did he just take you to the hospital and take you back to your mother's house?
I was driving, so I took him back to his house. We went and got the prescription filled.
So first you went and got the prescription filled?
Yes.
And then you drove him back to his house?
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you got back to your house?
Nothing. Everything was ordinary. It was just an ordinary day, watching TV, hanging out.
The two of you?
Yeah, making plans for the weekend.
What plans were you making for the weekend, Amy?
We weren't making plans for the weekend.
What were you doing that afternoon?
We were just talking, and he was telling me how sorry he was and that he would pay my bill for me, my hospital bill.
That takes 2 seconds. How long were you there?
Probably like an hour, 2 hours, not even.
She was there all day. Because I remember, because she had to put the ointment in my bathroom, and she had to put it on. So she even slept over.
She did?
Right. She had to put the ointment on at my house and get salt water and pour it on the burn, things like that. And she did that all at my house.
Amy, do you have any unreimbursed medical bills?
I have my medical bill right here.
How much was the medical bill?
$377.38.
How much do you owe on it?
The full amount. I haven't paid it because he said he was going to pay it.
Well, I think you should pay it. But you're suing him for $5,000.
Pain and suffering. Every time I look at I'm going to need plastic surgery. I haven't even went to the plastic surgeon and even got an amount estimated.
Well, then I can't help you with that, my dear. I can't help you with something that is speculative. What I don't understand is, if someone is frightened that someone is abusive and assaultive, they don't call them the next day to go to the hospital. They don't have them take them for the prescription when they have a sister and a mother and a stepfather and a brother and alternatives. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand that.
Good.
I was just calling him to tell him that I needed to go to the hospital, how severe it really was. That's the only reason why I called him. And he said, I'll go with you.
You don't call.
And
the only call you make is to the police. Did you do that?
No, because he has a son. I didn't want anything to happen.
Amy, he's going to pay your medical bill. You have a $377 medical bill. Your pain and suffering you're going to have to live with. I assume that you're not together anymore. Is that right?
Not at all.
Very good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $377. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Obviously, yeah, he did push me into a tree.
Oh, that's not true.
I didn't fall into a tree.
She was drunk.
I wasn't drunk. 2 beers, come on.
Slipped and fell, I guess.
You don't hurt the people that you love.
Eat pizza, don't throw it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Youngman versus Caffey. Step forward, please.
22-year-old emergency medical technician Thomas Youngman is suing his ex-girlfriend, 21-year-old bank teller Jacqueline Caffey, for the balance on a car and bank overdraft fees. Jacqueline claims Thomas paid off the car note without consulting her.
Mr. Youngman, Miss Caffey was your girlfriend for a while, and in 2003, according to your complaint, you were foolish enough to co-sign for a car loan for her.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you co-signed for the loan, it was her car. The car was titled in your name, is that right?
Yes.
And she agreed to make the payments on the car.
Yes, ma'am.
And she did make the payments on the car until when?
Until the car got totaled. There was one last payment to make after the insurance paid it off.
And how much was that one last payment?
$550.
Your complaint is that Miss Caffey decided not to make the last payment. You had already broken up at this point. And
Correct.
how long had you been apart?
We've been apart for almost a year and a month.
And you knew nothing about the car because it was her car and she was making the payments.
Correct.
After she totaled the car and stopped making the payments, they came after you because you were the co-signer on the car, and they took the money out of your bank account. How much did they take out?
$550 and 20-something cents.
Then can you explain why you're suing her for $2,000?
Because there were some late fees acquired with that, in the negative balance fees.
Okay. And how much were the negative balance fees?
$100.
Anything else?
My credit was damaged, so I figured the rest of it could be for that.
Okay. Now, Ms. Caffey, you say you've paid enough, and he co-signed for the car, and therefore it was his responsibility. I'd like you to explain that to me.
He co-signed for it. I have the proof of it.
No, there's no question he co-signed for it.
He co-signed for a car loan, and I made every single payment. This was a $13,000 loan, and he paid $500, in late fees, $650. And he drove the car, too, when we were together.
You mean in 2003?
Yes.
So what you're saying is he drove the car in 2003, and therefore it was his responsibility to make the last payment.
I don't owe him anything. He paid.
Would you do me a favor and answer my question?
Yes.
I'll decide whether you owe him something or not. I'm trying to figure out your defense. Tell me what your defense is.
I do not owe him because he...
That's a conclusion. That's a legal conclusion, that you do not owe him. So far, we have the following set of facts stipulated. He agreed to co-sign a loan on your promise that you would make the payments on the car. That fact is buttressed by the fact that you did, in fact, make payments on the car consistently, even after the two of you were no longer together. You made the payments on the car consistently, which supports his statement that you promised to make the payments until you totaled the car. Then you stopped. There was still a payment owing, $550. Now, I'd like your defense as to why you do not owe that $550.
I had called the bank over and over and tried to figure out how much I owed, and by the time I figured out how much was owed, because they kept telling me different numbers of how much was owed, and then she said, we'll just hold off on the payment and we'll get back to you on it. So when I finally got the letter in the mail that I owed $550, he had already paid it. I didn't ask him to pay it. He had already chosen himself to go ahead and pay it.
They took it out of his bank account.
That's not what... When I asked her and he told me that they froze his account, that never happened.
No. I want to tell you something. Mr. Youngman?
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to get your money.
Okay.
You are also a very, very fortunate man. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Really lucky. You could have been married to this warped thinking, allowed children to reproduce with this warped thinking. So I want you to consider yourself very lucky. Okay?
Thank you.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $650. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
26-year-old restaurant manager John Hackett is suing 24-year-old sales rep Garrett Shell for beating him with a baseball bat. John says at the time of the incident, Garrett was on parole for assaulting a police officer.
Yeah, this is case number 19 on the calendar in the matter of Hackett versus Shell. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Hackett, it is your claim that Mr. Shell assaulted you with a bat. You were escorting home a friend of yours, a woman. Is that this young lady?
Yes, ma'am.
This used to be her boyfriend.
Still is.
But at the time you were escorting her home, she had had a protective order against him.
Right.
Or she was afraid of him, and she asked you to take her home. And according to you, Mr. Shell showed up with a bat and out of the blue assaulted you quite badly. You were seriously injured, and you had a conversation with Mr. Shell's father. Is he here today, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
According to you, that conversation was, please don't press charges against my son because he's already got enough trouble with the law at this moment. And if you were to press charges, he probably would go to prison. You negotiated a settlement with him, which he did not follow through with. So you are now suing him for $5,000 for this assault. Mr. Shell says that he has finally resolved all of his other problems with the criminal justice system, and he is now free to fight these baseless charges. Okay? You there. Name, please.
Salwa Akaway.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
How long have you and Mr. Shell been together?
For about a year and a half.
On August 18th, 2004, were you and Mr. Shell together or apart?
We were together, but we were fighting at the moment.
Had you ever, Miss Akaway, sought in a court a protective order against Mr. Shell? Is not an answer.
Okay. No, it didn't actually go through, but I was supposed to have it.
I didn't ask you whether it went through. I said, have you ever sought a protective order against Mr. Shell?
No, I didn't.
You never went to a police station, a court, and requested a protective order?
Not requested a protective order.
You want to stop playing games with me, Miss Akaway, and tell me what you did?
I'm not playing games.
Listen to me very carefully. I've been married 28 years. If somebody said to me, did you ever seek a protective order against your husband, I would say no.
I just said no.
No, you didn't. You said, I never actually went through with requesting a protective order, is what you said to me, Miss Akaway. There's a difference. Do you understand?
I understand.
Good. Now, you want to tell me what steps you took to consider a protective order against Mr. Shell? Answer the question.
I didn't take any steps. I mean, I didn't go anywhere or went to the police or anything.
Could you stand up? Good. Now, there was a reason that Mr. Hackett was taking you home on the evening of August 18th. You want to tell me what that was, Miss Akaway?
Yes. I mean, I went out to the bar or whatever, and I just asked him to escort me home because I was afraid.
Afraid of what?
Just afraid of just going home.
Mr. Hackett, she's having a brain trauma right now. She's very hard for her to get it together. Mr. Hackett, would you like, please, sir, to tell me the conversation that you had with Miss Akaway with regard to taking her home that evening?
Yes. She came up to me and she was very distressed. She said that she was afraid that her ex-boyfriend or boyfriend, I don't know, had just gotten released from jail and was harassing her, and she was scared. And that they.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes, actually it is.
Miss Akaway, don't play with me. I'm giving you fair warning. Don't play with me. Now, so she was afraid the boyfriend was just getting out of jail?
Yes.
What were you in jail for, sir?
Ma'am, I had been out of jail for quite a while at that point.
Good. What had you been out of jail for a long time about?
I had been got into prison for assault on a public servant.
What public servant did you assault?
Police officer, ma'am.
Shh, shh. Listen, I don't need any help from you. Now, you assaulted a police officer.
Yes, ma'am, at age 17.
And how long were you incarcerated?
I was incarcerated for 5 years and 2 months, flat.
Must have injured the police officer pretty badly. What did you assault the police officer with?
With my foot.
With your foot?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the only time you'd been incarcerated, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
Subsequent to getting out of jail, were you incarcerated again?
Since prison?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
For what?
For assault.
Who?
On Selawakwa.
When?
That would have been in January of
What date was it, Miss Akaway?
It was last year, January 8th, I think.
So when I asked you, Miss Akaway, whether or not you would ever sought a protective order against him, were you granted a protective order?
No.
So when he was arrested for assault and incarcerated for the assault, I assume that you were injured.
Yes, I was.
How were you injured?
I just had bruises all over my body. Like, well, mainly my arms.
But you forgave him?
Yes, I guess you can say that.
Hmm?
Yes, yes.
Who are you?
Corey Shell, Garrett's brother.
Good. Now you can sit down for a minute.
Okay, thanks.
So you were escorting Miss Agaway home because she was afraid of Mr. Shell, who had just gotten out of prison and had been incarcerated subsequent to that for assaulting her, which is a very good reason to ask somebody to escort her home. And what happened, Mr. Hackett?
I drove in the car behind her car, and when we arrived at the house, she asked me to walk her to the door. So I helped her out of her car, helped her to the door, and as we were walking up the steps, she screamed, and as I turned around and I got clubbed. I fell on the ground. There was blood everywhere. I was dizzy. He was screaming, "Oh, you're..." Can I say what?
You can tell me anything.
Oh.
At my age, I've heard it all.
I mean, he was saying the equivalent of, "Oh, you're my girl. You're doing this. You're doing that." You know. And as he was, you know, it's kind of a blur of, you know, I was on the ground. Salwa came over to, you know, she was screaming and trying to get him off me. He threw her on the ground, pushed her away. And as I got up, I was very dazed. There was blood all in my eyes. And he was kind of circling me. You know, I've never thrown a punch in my life. And he was circling me, just popping me. So at some point, while I was on the ground, her brother came out of the door and asked what the hell was going on. By that time, Garrett took off. I mean, he went that way towards where Salwa was. I was laying on the ground.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I approached, she ran inside the house. Him and I had some verbal. He came at me, and I won.
Have you had your Y chromosome tested?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Hackett says he was escorting home a female friend when he was attacked by her boyfriend, Garrett Shell. John says Garrett beat him with a baseball bat.
Now, you have your photographs, Mr. Shell?
No, ma'am.
You, over here. Bird, show her these pictures, would you please? Yes, sir.
I was just going to say that those pictures were taken at the hospital by the crime scene unit, and I had gone home and taken a shower and changed clothes.
Okay.
So that's after the shower.
You've not seen these pictures, sir, have you?
No.
Did you have any idea what he looked like after this attack?
I heard. I have not seen the pictures.
Well, just hand them over to him. Sure. Now, according to what I read, at some point you were contacted by Mr. Shell's father.
Yes.
And even though this is hearsay, the whole idea of the conversation was that he would pay you $40,000 if you would not prosecute his son, because his son was already on parole for another assault. I assume that that assault that you were on parole for, sir, was the assault against this young lady here?
No, ma'am.
Was that on the 5-year term for the assault on the police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
So you had a split sentence, you were paroled, you'd served 2/3 of your time?
I had 2 concurrent sentences, and...
Why did you have 2 concurrent sentences, Mr. Shell?
I had another sentence for a check that was a day for day. In Texas, you have state jail felonies.
So what you're telling me, you had a prior case involving a check forgery?
A theft by check, yes, ma'am.
So you had a couple of years left to go in the event that you had a problem?
After I made parole, I had to...
You had to stay clean.
Yes, ma'am.
But you were arrested again for the assault on the lovely Miss Agaway over here, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they didn't violate you on your original parole when you were arrested for assaulting Miss Agaway?
No, ma'am.
I find that curious. Did you have a trial with regard to the assault on Miss Agaway?
Yes, ma'am.
And she testified?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified that he assaulted you?
Yes, I did.
And they didn't believe you?
They found him guilty on 1 charge.
They did? And what was that charge, Miss Agaway?
It was just for the assault, but there was 3 charges on there.
The lovely Miss Agaway says that you were found guilty on one of those charges, Mr. Shell.
Ma'am, I was not found guilty on an assault. I was found guilty on a domestic dispute.
After a trial?
After a 2-day trial. And I beat the cases.
No, you didn't beat them, sir. You were found guilty of domestic dispute. According to her, one of the charges of assault, according to you, was a domestic dispute. There is no such law on the books, by the way, Mr. Schell, in any jurisdiction that I'm familiar with, that says a domestic dispute is a crime. There is assault, there is harassment, there's battery. Do you understand? But a domestic dispute could be, you know, you forgot to change the roll of toilet paper. That could be a domestic dispute, too.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's not actionable in any court. Do you understand?
I understand that, ma'am.
Good. So you weren't found guilty of a domestic dispute.
Ma'am, I was charged with 2 Class A misdemeanor assaults and a Class C ticket, domestic violence.
Right. Domestic violence is a crime. Domestic dispute is not.
Yes, ma'am. Class C.
So you were found guilty of domestic violence.
Verbal. Not physical, verbal.
Well, but according to the lovely Miss Agaway, she had bruises all over her body. She must have fallen down over herself several times, Mr. Schell. So if you say you didn't touch her, that means she's lying.
And she's lying.
You picked him. Twice.
Wow.
You want to tell me, madam, about when Mr. Hackett walked you home and how he got to look like he looked in those pictures?
He walked me home because I did tell him that I was scared.
Of him?
Of him.
Right.
Okay. And then, so Garrett came out of nowhere and then basically, you know, fought Johnny. I mean...
No.
I mean, Johnny didn't fight back at all.
What did he hit him with?
His fists. There was no weapons there. Not that I saw, because I ran in the house because I was so scared for Johnny that I ran into the house and I called my brother, and then my brother's the one who called 911. I mean, I told Johnny that he had to go to the hospital. I mean, I was like crying.
Good. Now, so my question is, you were appearing on that side.
Actually, I wasn't on anybody's side. I was just here to tell the story. I wasn't on anybody's side.
She's neutral.
She's not neutral. She can't be neutral. She witnessed you assaulting Mr. Hackett, who she says did not even fight back. That's what you just said, right?
Right. I'm just here
Now,
to tell the truth.
Good.
That's
Well,
it.
that's what you just did. Sort of reluctantly, but you did. Sit down. Now I'm up to you, sir, because your answer says, now I am free to fight these false charges, and that's exactly what I plan to do. I'm ready.
I have one question for you, though.
I don't answer questions.
Okay.
I don't answer questions. I've heard his version, and I've heard her version. Now I want your version of what happened on the evening of August 18th.
Can I clear the beginning of what brought this about?
Absolutely not. I don't give a rat's behind what brought it about, sir. What I care about is he's walking her up the path, and you're there.
Yes, ma'am.
Pick it up from there.
Well, actually, we were into an argument, and I was with her earlier that night.
I don't care earlier that night.
Later on that night, I already had a friend call me and told me that she was with him at the bar.
I don't care.
What I'm telling you is, she was with her best friend's boyfriend, asks him to escort her home, knowing that I'm going to be there. I'm not knowing about him. He's not knowing about me. So pretty much when we got there, she probably would have known about what I'm going to see, and I was distressed about it. No, I did not start the fight. I approached, she ran inside the house, and at that point, this is when him and I had some verbal, and he came at me, and I won.
Have you had your Y chromosome tested?
Ma'am,
Listen to me very carefully, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
You think she loves you?
Yes, ma'am.
She took you back after you beat her up? Listen to me very carefully, Mr. Schell.
Yes, ma'am.
She loves you.
Yes, ma'am.
Live in the same place?
Yes, ma'am.
You live together. So you slept together last night?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you love each other?
Yes, ma'am.
She told me a second ago that you beat him up and he didn't fight back.
I know what she told you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I understand.
So
that.
is she a liar?
Yes, ma'am, she's a liar.
And so she lied about that, and she lied about you beating her up when you were arrested for assault. Do you understand where we're going here, sir? Mm-hmm. He's big trouble. You understand that?
I do.
Big trouble. You have children?
I do have a daughter.
Who does she live with?
She lives with she lives with me.
Who does she live with?
She lives with me.
And him?
We don't live together. We used to. We don't anymore.
You just told me that you slept together last night.
Yeah, because we had the same flight. That's the only reason why.
Well, I fly with a lot of people. I don't sleep with them. Miss Hathaway, I don't know how much of what you're telling me is the truth or not. All I can tell you is that there are only so far 2 innocent people, and that's Mr. Hackett over here and your child. Now, I don't know if your child lives with you, lives with your mother, lives with the child's father, but I can tell you that the child should not be living with you because your judgment is so askew and so warped that you should really not be rearing a child. That's the judgment of somebody who's been in the business for 30 years. As far as your case is concerned, Mr. Hackett, I don't know why you would sell yourself short for $40,000. I would have liked to have seen this man prosecuted and go back to prison, not only on this assault, but violated on his parole and gone back to serve the 2 years he's got on his old assault case on a police officer. There are people in this world that are sociopaths. They don't understand how it feels to live in a community of other civilized people. Sometimes it's because they are short of stature and they feel as if they have to be aggressive. That sometimes happens. Whatever it is, you shouldn't have sold yourself short. Mr. Schell, I don't know whether you're able to be rehabilitated. Quite frankly, I doubt it.
Ma'am, you haven't even let me present my case at all.
Listen to me, sir. You told me that you got there about the same time she did. You fought with him. Listen to me, quiet. You fought with him and you won. That's what you said. You said this was a fight and you won. That's your defense. I don't believe you. It's as clear as that. And it's my job to make a decision by the required quantum of proof, close your mouth, which is more proof than not who I believe. And quite frankly, Mr. Schell, it isn't even close. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000.
You didn't even let me explain my case.
Bodies are accused. You may step out. Right here. Yeah, this is case number 5 on the calendar in the matter of Collins versus Daniel. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Collins, you and Mr. Daniel were boyfriend and girlfriend. It is your claim that after a night of both of you drinking, Mr. Daniel assaulted you, caused you severe injuries. You were treated in a hospital. You want him to pay your medical bills, and then some. Mr. Daniel said that you were both pretty drunk, that you were as aggressive as he was. He has no recollection of assaulting you to the extent that you claim that you were assaulted, and that you even saw each other subsequently. Is that right, sir? How long were the two of you dating?
We've been dating probably for about a month at the time when the incident happened.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
Well, it seemed to me that if two people get loaded to the extent that they can't remember what's happening, they have a problem.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
Do you?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Daniel?
Mechanic.
And you?
I'm a nurse.
Okay, Ms. Collins, let's hear about the assault. It happened in February of 2005?
Yes, ma'am, February 12th.
Go ahead, let me hear.
We had been going out for about a month, and we went out with some of my friends out to a couple of clubs. We both had been drinking, and then we closed the clubs and went back to his house. My intentions were just to go there and go to sleep because him and I had been arguing and been having some problems. I found out that he was married. He told me he had been married and then came out slowly telling me he's still married, in the process of getting a divorce. Then found out that they weren't in the process of getting any kind of divorce. So when we went back to his house, he was making advances towards me, you know, to, do something sexual, and that's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
so
she's lying.
Shh, you're going to have a chance later.
So
I don't want you to look down. I want you to look at me. I want to look in your eyes, Ms. Collins. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Everything at this point was fine up until when he started doing that.
Well, what did you go back to his house for if you were drinking and he was drinking?
Because up until this point, there hadn't been any problems.
Well, you closed the clubs. It must have been very late.
Yeah, him and I had
Don't look down. You look at me.
Him and I had been hanging out.
Listen to me.
And
you just told me you closed the clubs, which means it was very late.
Yes, ma'am.
And the two of you had been drinking. You went to more than one club.
Right.
So then why, if you didn't want to engage in any sort of intimate relationship, would you go back to his house rather than go back to your house?
Because there was no way for me to get back to my house because both of us had been drinking.
Well, how did you get to his house?
He drove. He drove. I mean, my friend's house was only a block away from his house, so, I mean, he drove.
Well, when you say you closed the clubs,
Yes.
you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house?
Yes, who lives not too far from the club.
Oh, just a second. Well, you didn't tell me that. You said you closed the clubs and went to his house. So you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house, who lives a block away from him.
Right.
Why didn't you stay at your friend's house? Is not an answer.
Because we were going to spend the night together. I mean,
Who was going to spend the night together?
Him and I were going to spend the night at
Well,
his
what
house.
were you going to do? Play canasta?
Just go to sleep. We were just going to go to sleep, Your Honor.
Why couldn't you go to sleep at your friend's house?
It's a party house. There was too many people there. I don't crash at party houses. I wanted to stay with who I consider my boyfriend.
Okay, I'm just getting there. All right, so now you drive to his house.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay, so then he started coming on to me. I just wanted to go to sleep. I just wanted to go to sleep, Your Honor. And when I tried to leave, he blocked the door.
Where were you going?
I was going to call someone to come pick me up. I just wanted to leave the house and go out front, use my cell phone, call somebody to come pick me up. And he would not let me leave. He blocked the door. He pushed me down. I got up. He pushed me back down. And then he pushed me over towards the bed. Every single time when I got up, he kept pushing me down, and then that progressed. He hit me. He smacked me first, and then he hit me in the side of my head, and I tried to fight back, and then he just ended up choking me, telling me to go to sleep, and that I wasn't going anywhere, and cursing at me and stuff like that. And that was the last thing I remember, him telling me to go to sleep, and that I wasn't going anywhere, and that this is what it felt like to be strangled.
What do you mean? It was the last thing you remember. What is that? I don't understand. It's the last thing you remember.
Well, he was choking me, and then when I woke up, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
So he choked you, you passed out, and then you woke up how many hours later?
It was probably about 4.5 hours later.
Okay, when you woke up, what did you do?
I woke him up and told him to take me to my car and that I was thinking about pressing charges against him. And he told me that it was my fault, and I didn't say anything else to him.
So where did you go?
He dropped me off at my friend's house. And
A block away?
Yes.
Couldn't you walk there?
It's probably a little bit further than a block. It's in the same neighborhood.
Took you to your friend's house, and what happened next?
I went inside. I didn't say anything to my friends because I know if I would have told them, they probably would have.
Don't speculate what they would have done. Keep going.
Well, I didn't say anything, and I left.
Where did you go?
I went home and spoke to a couple family members of mine, and I explained to them what happened, and they said that I should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance.
What were you going to the hospital for?
Because the side of my head was severely swollen, and I had blood coming out of the side of my ear, and my jaw wasn't meeting.
You mean and your friends didn't say anything to you when you went into the house?
I kind of hid my face a little bit.
Okay. You have photographs?
I don't have any pictures because at the time...
the answer is you don't have any photographs?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a hospital report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Okay. Now, after this incident happened, you went out with him again.
Yes. He called me, and he seemed very genuinely sorry. He was concerned with what condition I was in when I went to the hospital and everything, and I told him I ended up having to going. I was seriously hurt.
Well, they found that you had a facial bruise. They did a CAT scan. They found nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
But the main thrust of this bill is the $2,500 CAT scan. That's what bloated it to $3,600.
Yes.
Okay. So you told him that you had this bruise, and he said?
He said that he would pay for all of it. I told him that I would feel better about him sitting in jail, and he said that I would be doing the right thing if that was the route that I took, and that he would do anything he could to make it up to me after he got out.
Fine. So when did you go out with him again?
A month later.
Why?
Because the guy that I knew was very sweet, and he treated me really good, and I just thought that he had an alcohol problem that changed him into somebody else.
Well, you told me about 5 minutes ago that you had been arguing with him a lot because he found that he lied to you, that he was married, that he wasn't in the process of getting a divorce, and he's a drunk, and he has blackouts or he doesn't know what he's doing, and he gets violent. All this doesn't sound to me like worthy of a second date.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let him talk.
And later today.
What do you have that suggests that he took your car?
I specifically remember him wearing a hat, and I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
Beat her up during a night of heavy drinking.
My question to you is, you just said to me that the person that you knew, even though he lied to you about being married, he lied to you about getting a divorce, he assaulted you to the extent you had to go to the emergency room, he was a sweet guy, and you felt that it was only because of the alcohol that changed his personality. That's pretty much what you just testified to. Then why in the world would a relatively intelligent woman go out with him drinking again?
We went out to dinner, and he had only had like 1 or 2 drinks while we were sitting there having dinner.
And what about you?
Same.
You drank together.
We had
All
wine
right.
with dinner.
How about a Diet Coke? What?
What? I don't know.
Yeah, that probably would have been the right
Give me a
thing to
break.
do.
I
You're
know.
right. You're right.
I know.
Your
They
Honor.
keep me in business, so I shouldn't complain. Now I'm up to you.
The truth of the matter.
You know me. I love the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you don't tell me the truth, you're going to be eating your shoes.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Okay, the whole night started. We was at Mojo's. This was the club we closed. When we got in the car driving back to her friend's house, we were supposed to get in her car, but we couldn't find her keys from the incident that happened at the club with her throwing my leather coat on the floor twice to lose her keys.
Get to your house.
Okay. We get to my house. Okay. She's passed out in the car. That's why she doesn't remember how we got to my house. The point is, I took her.
Up. Go ahead.
She's passed out in the back seat. All right. Reason we didn't take her car, couldn't find her keys. I pick her up. I told her inside the house. I put her in the bed. I take her shoes off. I go to cut the light off. She's up and angry, yelling, screaming, pushing me. And I'm just looking at her like, where's this coming from? I wasn't to the fact that I was drunk enough not to drive. I wasn't drunk enough not to handle the situation. The fact of the matter was, she was the aggressor. She started the whole aggression. She started the whole violence of slapping, being very aggressive. It went from shoving me to pushing her, holding her, pushing her back on the bed, telling her, not do this, you're drunk, lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off, that's all it is, you're drunk. She gets back up, she slaps me. I slap her back, she punched me, I punch her back, and we go back into the whole argument of going back and forth again and again, to the fact that I hold her down on the bed and tell her and beg and plead with her not to keep being aggressive, just lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off.
Okay.
To that point, we woke up in the morning after.
All right. So let me dissect for you, Mr. Daniel, what you have just told me. What you have just told me was that you were not so drunk that you couldn't drive.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
So you were sober enough to withstand the sobriety test.
Yes, Your Honor.
Fine. And she was so drunk that she was passed out in back of the car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then you take her home, and
My
she
house.
starts to act aggressive.
Yes, Your Honor.
She punches you, you punch her back.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the person who was so drunk, this is what you tell me, that she didn't know what was going on. You, on the other hand, are sober.
Yes, Your Honor.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let them talk. They make up some cock and bull story, right?
Yep.
That they say, well, this is going to work. She was the aggressor. I could drive because I was okay, right? You can't assault somebody when they're so drunk that they don't know what's going on, Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand where we're going now?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're the sober one. She's drunk. That's according to you. You're the
Yes, Your Honor.
defendant.
Yes, Your Honor.
When she punched you, you should have gotten up, should have gone downstairs, should have gotten in your car, go to a friend's house and say, listen, I'm not going to stay with this lady. She's out of it. She's assaultive. She's nuts. This is the way she gets when she's drunk. I don't want to have anything to do with her. I'm certainly not going to hit her because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not saying I didn't make a mistake, Your Honor.
Good. Mistakes cost.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would describe it as her friends telling me that night that since she's drinking and she's being aggressive, that she's Diablo.
That's just something my friends say joking around. It's not even like that.
And I'm like, okay, that's the devil.
It's just my little playful nickname between my friends.
And it turned out to be that way.
The whole situation is he drank more than he could handle, and that's all it comes down to.
I learned from my mistakes.
Stone Cold Steel 16 কি WWE তে রিটার্ন করছে আসন্ন রেসলিওমান কেন্দ্র করে বর্তমানে সবথেকে বড় খবর হচ্ছে টেক্সট র্যাটেলসন টেক্ট স্টান কোল্ড সিল্ড অ্যাসিডের ইন রিং রিটার্ন। এই খবর শুরু হয় যখন টুইটারে নাম কি ওয়েস্ট বোটেস্ট নামক হ্যান্ডের টুইটার করে, যেটি আমি শুনেছি সেটা সত্যি হয় এবং তারই রিপোর্ট করে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউ অ্যাসিডের রিটার্ন প্রায়শই আছে। এবারে রেসেলোমনিয়ার 38তম সাংস্কৃতিক অনুষ্ঠানে অ্যাসিনটেন বুঝতেছো ভাই, আমার দাঁত ভাঙা লাগে এরা পড়তে গিয়া না পড়ছো সব ভুল তাও খালি পড়া ইংলিশ বাদ দিয়া দাও কঠিন দীক্ষা হোমার ট্রাক্সটের এর আগে যখন রেসেলোমনিয়া ট্রেস্কোসে আয়োজিত হয়েছিল তখনও অ্যাস্টিন আরো দুজন হল ওর ফেমার্স যথা মানে আবার 10 মিনিট পড়লে রানিং হয়ে যাবো সব কই তার হতো না আনফ্লোদের সাথে মিলে লেজেন্ড অফ নেশন শুরু হয়। লার্জ অফ নেশন শুরু করে সম্প্রতি 2020 সালে এক রতে সে তার সুবিখ্যাত 360 দিবস পালন করে। সেই র এর রেটিং তার পূর্ব এপিসোডগুলি থেকে অনেক বেশি ছিল। তাই রেসলিং ফ্যানের অনুমান শুরু করছে অ্যাসিটেন রিটার্নস নিয়ে এবং অনেকের মতে যদি অ্যাসিটেন এবার কোনোভাবে রিটার্ন করে তাহলে তারা অপোনেন্ট হবে কেভিট ওয়েসন, কারণ বর্তমানে কেভিট ওয়েসন কোল্ড ট্রেডমার্ক ফিনিশিং মুড স্টান্ট ব্যবহার করেছে এবং কিছুদিন আগেই সে একটি প্রোমো কোড যেখানে সে টেক্রোসের বেল্ট নিবাসী ফ্যানদের উদ্দেশ্যে কটূক্তি করে। রেসেলোমনি আয়োজক রাজ্যের সঙ্গে কেভিনের ফিউচার কি শেষ পর্যায়ে, যেখানে নিজস্ব রেসলার্স ইভেন্টস অ্যাসোসিয়েশন রিটার্ন ঘটবে এটি তো সময়ই বলবে। কিন্তু অ্যাসিডস এর আগে 2015 সালে পল হেইম্যানকে দেওয়া একটি সংস্কারে লেসনারের বিরুদ্ধে টেক্সট ডেথ ম্যাচে রিটার্ন করার সম্ভাবনার কথা বলেছিল, কিন্তু সে এখনো রেঞ্জের সাথে ফিউডেই আছে। এর আগে অ্যাসিন্স নেভারের ব্রোকেন স্কিল শো এর জন্য একটি রেসলিং রিংও তৈরি করেছিল, কিন্তু বেশি আশা করে বসে থাকার আগে আমাদের এটা ভুলেও চলবে না যে গত এপ্রিলে আপক্রেস্ট জেরিকোকে দেওয়া সাক্ষাৎকারে অ্যাসিডস ইন রিং ইন্টার্নের সম্ভাবনার ব্যাপারে বলেছিল না এটি হওয়া কঠিন শুধু একটি ম্যাচের জন্য, এতে তোড়জোড়ে আমার কাছে বড়ই অ্যান্টি ক্লাইম্যাক্সড মনে হয়। তিনি আরও বলেছেন, আমার মনে হয় ডিন্স আমাকে বেশ কয়েকটা রিটার্ন করার চেষ্টা করেছিল, কিন্তু কি জানো আমি এই ইন্ডাস্ট্রিকে অনেক ভালোবাসি। আমার মনে হয় আমি অন্য কোনো কারোর থেকে এটিকে বেশি ভালোবাসি এবং এটি ছেড়ে যাওয়া আমার পক্ষে খুবই কষ্টদায়ক ছিল। সুতরাং আমার কাছে শুধুমাত্র একটি ম্যাচের জন্য ফিরে আসা কেন, আমি কি প্রমাণের চেষ্টা করছি এখনো সবাইকে কোনো জিনিসটা মনে রাখবো, এটা টাকার বিষয় নয়, এটি বিজনেস ছাড়াও পরের আমার খুবই লম্বা সময় দীর্ঘ 3 বছর লেগেছিল হজম করার জন্য যে আমি রেসলিং ছেড়ে দিয়েছি। বর্তমানে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই এর ভবিষ্যৎ প্রজন্ম নিয়ে অনেক মনেই সন্দেহ রয়েছে, কারণ লেনার্স এবং র্যান্ডি রয়ালসের রিটার্ন করার পরে 2022 সালের রেসলম্যানিয়ার টানা 12তম সাংস্কৃতিক অনুষ্ঠান, যেটির পর টাইমোর হেডলাইন নামও কি হেডলাইন পড়তাছি কি কম করছে
ট্রাইমেরা হেডলাইন করেছে, ট্রাইমেরা হেডলাইন করেছে আর তুমি
কম
হেডলাইন
বুঝতাছ। গিটস এস্টিন্ট রিটার্ন হলো পরের বছর একই হাল হবে, অর্থাৎ ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউ এর পরবর্তী প্রজন্ম স্টার তৈরি ব্যর্থ হয়েছে। রয়্যাল রাম্বল এখনো এমন রেসলার জিতেছে যা অনেক বছর আগে রাম্বল জিতেছিল, যেমন 11 বছর আগে জেতা এজ ও 19 বছর আগে জেতা ব্রুকস লেসনার, এছাড়াও গোল্ডেনবার্গ, ববি লেসলি, শন মাইকেল ইত্যাদি। এইসব রেসলারের ইন রিং রিটার্নের ফলে এটি পরিষ্কার যে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই তে ক্রমেই পার্ট-টাইম এবং পুনরও রেসলারদের উপর নির্ভরশীল হয়েছে। সেই হিসেবে অস্টিন রিটার্ন খবরও উড়িয়ে দেওয়া যায় না। অস্টিন লেসনারের সাথে ম্যাচ না খেলতে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই ত্যাগ করেন। ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই এর ইতিহাসে যদি রুকি রেসলার্স হিসেবে কেউ সব থেকে বেশি নাম করে থাকে তাহলে সে হলো ব্রক লেসনার। সে রেসলিং ইন্ডাস্ট্রির সমস্ত বড় স্টারদের সঙ্গে ম্যাচ খেলেছে এবং প্রায় সকলেই পরাজিত করেছেন, কিন্তু একজন রেসলারের সঙ্গে এখন পর্যন্ত কোনো ম্যাচ খেলেনি, তিনি হলো স্ট্যান্ড কোল্ড স্টিভ অস্টিন। এ ব্যাপারে সম্প্রতি ব্রক বলেছেন, আমি হাল্ক হোগানের সঙ্গে রেসলিং করেছি। আপনারা জানেন আমি দ্য রক, দ্য আন্ডারটেকার, হাল্ক হোগান বেশিরভাগই বলছি। এই মিনিং এর ভিতরে মনে করো পড়তে পড়তে রাত দুধ সব উল্টা একবার এমনি যায়, একবার এমনি যায়। হাল্ক হোগান ফ্লোয়ারের সকলের সাথে রেসলিং করেছি, কিন্তু সিডস অস্টিনের সাথে করার সুযোগ পাইনি, যেটি নিয়ে আমি এখন পর্যন্ত চিন্তা করি। আপনারা জানলে অবাক হবেন, অস্টিনও কিছু সময় আগে রোকসের সঙ্গে ম্যাচ খেলার ইচ্ছা প্রকাশ করেছিল। তাহলে আপনারা বলবেন দুজনই একে অপরের সঙ্গে খেলার ইচ্ছা 20 বছর আগে তাদের ম্যাচটি কেন বাতিল করা হয়েছিল সেই ব্যাপারে বলতে গেলে আপনাদের 2002 সালের কথা বলতে হবে, যখন ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই তে নতুন স্টারদেরকে পুরনো স্টারদের জায়গায় পূরণ করেছিল। তারিখটি 10 জুলাই সালটি 2002। র শুরু হওয়ার আগে ভিন্স ম্যাকম্যানের সামনে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই 10 বিগ ম্যানের সামনে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই পরিত্যাগ করে চলে যান। এর কারণ ছিল কিং অফ দ্য রিং এর কোয়ালিফিকেশনের জন্য টেক্সট রেটেল স্নোকের সঙ্গে সেই রাতের ম্যাচ ঠিক হয়েছিল দ্য বিস্ট ইনকারেন্ট ব্রক লেসনার। অস্টিনের রাগের কারণে ছিল তখন একজন রুকি ব্রক লেসনারের অস্টিনকে পরাজিত করে টুর্নামেন্টে অগ্রসর হওয়া ঠিক হয়েছিল। অস্টিন জানতো যে ব্রক একজন শক্তিশালী ও ভয়ঙ্কর রেসলার ছিল, তবুও সে তার বিরুদ্ধে খেলতে অস্বীকার করে। আসলে অস্টিন রাগের কারণ ছিল সে চাইছিল না এরকম একজন গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ম্যাচ পে পার ভিউ ইনভেস্ট না হয়